Hello, everybody. Hope everybody's all right. Still don't see that on the air sign. It's the wrong place again. I'm going to have to fix that. What we could do to fix it in a way is to take this and move it like this a little bit. So here we go on the air. That'll be okay. And here we go. Hey, everyone. Hope that everybody's all right. Nice to have you on board, everybody, as usual. And of course, we are here to entertain and talk about radio. I wanted to do my beard before because it's all scruffy, but I forgot. So, anyways, I'll have a scruffy beard for the rest of the show. Nice to have all of you here. Different setup. I'm reorganizing the stuff. World map here, and we're gonna kind of play around with the background here and have something. And I decided to use my Chromebook for the chat room. So instead of being looking at, in the air every time I'm looking at the chat room, I'll be looking down. I'll be more natural probably for the camera. So things like that. And more changes are coming. I'm trying to figure out how I could use this space here, here mostly for you guys, to maybe project the waterfall with the projector on the wall, which would be something I would like. And if it doesn't work like I want, it might actually be a TV that I'll just put on the wall and have the waterfall there. We're going to find a way to do something, anyways. We'll add stuff in the background to make it even more interesting to you guys watching out there. So nice to have all of you here. Hope you enjoyed the show today. We are live. Of course, my name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. I am live twice a week, and that is UT Thursday, 0 hours UTC, which is Wednesday evening North America. So 0 hours UTC, but it's technically Thursday UTC time. And we are here on Saturday at 20 hours Universal Time. A few things to talk about. We have an email from Antonio that lives in the south part of Italy that has some shortwave questions he'd like answered in today's show, as you will be watching. So we'll get to that. I want to immediately say, before I forget, hello to those that have checked in the chat room. We have Richard Lemke that has checked in from St. Albert, Alberta. He said that he started his day with Radio Emma Talk on Mixcloud. There they have different rules regarding how you use copyright material. 2 hours seeing of offshore radio. And he says the Oilers are easy to play against. Free ice. It's pretty much the same thing for the Montreal Canadiens, I guess. So welcome aboard, Richard. Always nice to have you here. We have Elizabeth that is checking in from Regina, Saskatchewan, Canada. She says she's happy to be listening to the show. We'll be tuning her Kenwood R5000 receiver. Thank you so much for making this a enjoyable Saturday afternoon. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. Nice to have you on board. And we have Graham that is saying best wishes from Graham, VA3PGT in Milton, Ontario. So cool. And then we have Antonio that will be reading his email a little later, as we'll be checking out what the questions that he has. Some interesting questions in there. And like we always say, there's no dumb questions. You don't know, you don't know. That's the way it is. So my name is Gilles, located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, northeast part of North America. We have a chat room that is really nice. If you have a Gmail account, you can join in the chat room. And we have some really, really great people here that are, of course, helpful and always fun. This is the place to be. This is the place to be if you want to, feel welcome and enjoy the shortwave and radio listening hobby in general. And when all of this is over, we have a Facebook group, which is official SWL channel, same name as the channel here. That group is there to continue whatever is happening in between live shows, people sharing what they're listening to, radios they're buying, uh, you know, personal opinions of what they think of different radios they own, and answering questions and all sorts of things. It's really, really nice. It's a very active group, and it's beautiful to see all the people there that are posting and that are enjoying the the hobby through this Facebook group. Pirate apparently 6925. Let's check it out here. Anything here? Not hearing much right now. So the radios I'm using today, the AirSpy HF Plus on the laptop, and the Texan H501X, both on the MLA30 antenna outdoors. So welcome everyone. We had last night the coldest night in Montreal for the for the past 28 years apparently. So it was exactly minus 30 degrees Celsius when I woke up this morning. It's warmed up to minus 17 right now. So it was really minus 30. I've not seen that number in a long time here, minus 30. So that's kind of a cold one. So last time apparently was 28 years ago in 1994. So pretty crazy temperatures. We're having a cold spell here. It's going to be cold this week also. Perfect weather to stay home and stay warm. So we're going to start. I'm just going to take a sip of my official drink, which is vodka cranberry. So Phil Tube, nice to have you here. David in Barcelona, nice to have you on board. Barcelona, Spain. EA3IEK, EA4998URE. Robert Cross, nice to have you on board. Nick Sharp, nice to have you here from Southern England. Bobby Burgess, WA5107SWL in Morgan City, Louisiana. Scott Cranston, nice to have you here from Massachusetts. Mad Max 2069, nice to have you here. Charlie McKee, VE2XCC, reporting from Saint Augustin de Desmaures, just west of Quebec City. Bienvenue, welcome aboard. Matt, MDK2 from Denver, Colorado, nice to have you on board. We have Shelly, nice to have you on board from Pennsylvania. Might not be able to stay for it all, no problem there. At least you're here. Dwight, nice to have you here from Coastal Virginia, WA 4532 SWL, sunny and 44 Fahrenheit. Dwayne, nice to have you here, 34 and sunny in Northeast Tennessee. Sheldon Harvey, nice to have you on board, and says +2 Fahrenheit right now. Feels like 9 below with a wind chill. And you should see the cats that are just so funny because they're asking to go out. So I opened the door, and both Mignon and Paul are, like just shaking as soon as the cold air comes in. And then they just run back inside saying, "Oh, you're crazy. I'm not going there." Ecadarius, nice to have you on board from, as usual. Michael West, nice to have you here. Says, got my HF on tuning around, and he is KD5DCG. Metalunar, nice to have you on board. Dave, nice to have you here. TVDXer, bonjour, ça va? Est-ce que ça va? J'espère que toi, ça va bien aussi. Toujours un plaisir. Nice to have you here, just outside of Montreal. PLF Radio, bonjour. J'espère que ça va bien depuis Lyon en France et que tout va bien là-bas. Nice to have you on board as usual. Andy New, nice to have you here. M7CUN. Laura Robertson, KO4DFJ. Nice to have you here. Vince, nice to have you on board, my friend. Um, mm, 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 mm. DJW883, nice to have you here from Southeast Pennsylvania. We have Metalunar says, I'm wondering, do you also play around with television reception and UHF antennas? I still find that interesting even after digital transition. I've tried a few. I'm not really installed very well for UHF stuff and all of that, but with TV, well, actually, I could try the discount on the TV, and didn't think of that. The I used to DX on the TV, and when sporadic e-skip happened, I would get all these stations from far away on channel 3, 4, and 5, which were trying the lower channels that were without any TV stations here. And sometimes I would have fun just trying to see how far I can get one of a station on UHF or VHF. Now, since the digital transition, I do have rabbit ears that I put on my big screen TV here. Out of curiosity, it does bring me something like 10 channels in HD around Montreal, 10 or 12, which I was amazed. And I find kind of curious and interesting. From time to time, what I do is I will scan with TV to see if it gets anything else, but not really any DX per se. I know that there's a few people out there that actually DX, even though TV has been digital now. There's still some possibility of doing some DXing. So I need to check that out a little more seriously, maybe, and see what else I can get. But now that I just got the idea that maybe my discount would be a good idea to put on the TV to see what I can get, could be interesting. Hmm. Jonathan, nice to have you here from Cornwall. Joe Liturco, nice to have you here from Rochester, New York. Jeff King from Jacksonville, Florida. Paul Steckler from the Summery Bay Area. Dave says, how is non-analog TV DXing? Well, there's actually a few people that I've seen on some of the posts that on some of the blogs that actually do TV DXing with digital and are getting stations from far away. Apparently, you can still do some really nice DX. And what's nice on many of them, they say it's easier to identify the station most of the time because when you get a clear enough signal, the digital TV will often pick up the call sign and display it. So makes it kind of a little easier. But apparently, it's still the thing. We thought, okay, with digital transition of the TV, that might actually be a thing of the past. But no, apparently there's still a lot of DXers out there for TV DXing. Jet Crafter, nice to have you on board from a sunny but cold southern Maine. Brad, nice to have you here. N5LUL WA5192SWL. Matt says, my team, the Avalanche, faces off with the Abs tonight. Aha. We're going to win. Or maybe not. Jeff King says, freeze warning for Jacksonville, Florida. I'm not surprised. It's so cold up here that if that cold weather goes down all the East Coast, it's going to be one of those northern Florida nights. I still have in my head an image of two things. When the space shuttle Challenger blew up in 86, which was something that I'll never forget. When my mom, when I came back from school, and my mom told me that the shuttle had exploded, and I still remember because that night was really cold. I still remember all the the heights icicles on the shuttle itself, which was truly surprising. And truly surprising because even today, I still kind of think that who the hell decided to take such a decision of the shuttle's full of icicles and we're just going to take them off and it's going to be okay for a launch, which, that could have changed everything, of course. But I still remember also in the same day, I was watching one of the US networks and they were showing, and I still have that image also in my head of the orange groves and the trees full of oranges with icicles on them because it was so cold that day. It was so surprising, and of course they were talking about that because they were talking how that was going to damage the trees, and that's going to, you know, be a big problem. But man, um, it's one of those things, but pretty crazy. By the way, if you have Netflix, just digressing a little bit here, do check. There's the Challenger. The Challenger documentary is very, very good. It's, I think, in 4 parts, and it is totally worth watching to see, how the explanation of why we went there and it happened to why it happened with people just, you know, sacrificing the idea of maybe people's lives over money and scheduling and stuff. It's very good. Check it out if you have Netflix. It's totally worth it. Totally worth it. Um, Now we have the bot 123. Nice to have you here from Reykjavik, Iceland. Nice to have you here from Reykjavik. I still remember Radio Reiki Sudvarpid. That you have a QSL card here actually that had Icelandic programming on shortwave. Jeff Williams, nice to have you here from Southwest Cornwall in the UK. Greg, nice to have you on board from Franklin, Wisconsin. Matt, MDK2 is copying the pirate on 6925 upper side band. And so cool. Here I'm not hearing anything. I am on 6925 USB. Not hearing anything right now. So kind of Metalunar says, for me, long distance TVDXing is pretty much not possible with digital, but I find the challenge is getting a usable picture from 70 or so miles and trying to pull in as many channels as I can. It's DXing is many things. It's not necessarily just getting TV pictures or images or video from 1,000 miles away. Just putting up a decent antenna and being able to fetch a digital TV station from 50 miles or 75 miles or 100 miles. It's kind of it's a challenge, and it's a form of DXing. DXing is very relative depending on what you actually want to listen to. Jetcrafter just fired up the CountyCom GP7 and listening to airliners on 6577 USB. Cool. Let me punch in that frequency here. See if here's some activity a little bit. I see I'm hearing some AMers, ham radio in AM mode on 7295 here, coming in on the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery. So this is cool. So yes, indeed, as Sheldon Harvey is saying, the 35th annual Winter Shortwave Festival is March 4th and 5th, 2022. It is an online event via Zoom, and you can go to the website that Sheldon shared, swlfest.com, and you can register, and it's $10 for the whole weekend. And I can tell you guys, those that have not joined last year, you missed out on an amazing event. So you need to be there. It is fun. There's all sorts of lectures and presentations. Me and Sheldon are closing it out on the Saturday night, Saturday the last presentation on Saturday, where we will talk about the future and the state of radio and how we need to get off our ass to do something about it and keep radio alive. It's very important. So we also the CIDX Club will have the hospitality suite, which is a lot of fun. You go in between the suite and the different lectures and what's happening on the event. It is 2 days that I love. Last year was amazing. This year I'm looking forward to this. So $10 for all that you'll have as an experience and fun on that weekend. I tell you, it is totally worth it. You need to join and you need to get there. Please do so. Yeah, I'm hearing some traffic 6577 with cell call and in aeronautical communications from the air traffic control. Here we go. So some activity there. Some activity there, 6577, if you guys want to hear some air traffic control stuff. What else do we have? So it's a Zoom event, online Zoom event, like I said, and please check it out. It is really, really fun. I'm sure that everybody that joined last year was really happy to have joined and will be there this year again. James, nice to have you on board from Connecticut. Joe Tyson, nice to have you here from Apex, North Carolina, KM4WRQ. Jeff King just bought 2 Texan radios, DR910, not bad for a cheapie, and the R9702, not worth the $25. So yeah, some are possibly not necessarily always great, especially when you don't pay a lot. You're not really sure what you're going to get in radios, and but the DR910, I have one here that I need to find. It's actually a decent little portable for the price. Brian Chappell, nice to have you here from Vancouver Island, south end of Vancouver Island. Pretty cool. Scott Craston. Scott says minus 22 Fahrenheit. Wow. Tim Lewis, nice to have you on board from South Carolina. What else do we have? So, yeah, you're sharing the Ethon receiver for 2022. We'll see, hopefully. But we got a lot of people kind of saying that they don't believe that this is going to happen still. And I have a hard time seeing that happen. I hope there's an improvement over whatever they had, because if that's basically the same radio they actually had in the past, I don't even know why they are bringing it back. We'll see. I actually wanted to. I thought that I would say that I will bet on this radio. Okay, I will bet on this radio. I don't believe it's going to come to market, but if it does, I will be purchasing one for review. So this is my bet. Maybe I'll have to, buy that expensive radio. Maybe not, but you guys are witnesses to my bet that if it comes to market, I'll buy one. Okay. Cygnus Rider, nice to have you here from Rochester, New York. Nice to have you here, Joe. We have Neil Rigby from the UK. Nice to have you on board. Art Dodd, nice to have you here. Art, K2ADC in New Jersey. Um, Matt says, silly cats hope one or both make a cameo appearance today. Yeah, hopefully. We'll see what's going to happen with that. They just, as the show, because they were super active for the past 2 hours ish, 3 hours, and always meowing and coming here. And I thought, well, maybe they're going to be, up and coming over here. And I think 5 minutes before the show started, they both went in the bed in the bedroom and just started their nap. So it's like, okay, when usually they nap for a few hours. So we'll see. Zanfaro is following along with the Drake R8 and MLA 30 Plus and the HF Plus Discovery Umbro Loop, starting off with a glass of milk and a chocolate cupcake. Cool. Richard, nice to have you on board, my friend. What can you tell me about FRS and GMRS? I programmed all the frequencies, but so far no reception. So, you know what? FRS and GMRS had a peak at a certain time. And there was a lot of activity. Now, FRS and GMRS are a little different in Canada and the United States. In the United States, there's some licensing in there because it can be used for commercial stuff and it could be used for all sorts of things. There even repeaters are possible, which is not the case here. Here, FRS GMRS is technically walkie-talkies that kids play with. So scan the frequencies. Okay, the best thing is to do is you've programmed the channels, scan the channels all the time, and you probably will hear something at some point. But the peak of the FRS GMRS usage seems to have passed. Like the CB craze. When FRS and then GMRS talkies came to market, there was kind of a craze. Everybody would buy them, and especially around Christmas, you'd hear tons of families and children using them, and there was a lot of activity at some point, maybe 10, 15 years ago. But today, there's probably some activity. I don't know if it's far. If mine would not be that far, I could have picked it up, but I don't see it here because I could have turned it on and you see what's around here. Around here, with a lot of little families that are living around where I live here, there's definitely some activity, but it's really kind of, they're used as kids' walkie-talkies today, pretty much, especially here. Mickey Dalmage, nice to have you here from Sherwood Park, Alberta. +9 Celsius. Wow, pretty cool. Feels like spring. The first time that it does that, it always feels like spring. Greg says, lives in Franklin, Wisconsin. I have a shortwave receiver with long wave and air, AM, FM. So, okay, cool. Hope you hear a lot of stuff there. RJDA Dakota, nice to have you on board from a balmy Wentzville, Missouri. It's about 30 Fahrenheit. WA0113 SWL. Zenfaros, about that TV. I actually still have an ICOM R3. Oh, and that's the one with the screen, the little TFT screen in it, right? You could kind of watch security cameras, stuff like that. Mark, from a chilly southeast Wisconsin. Paul Steckler, can we add an interval signal to this show? Maybe Paul the cat meowing for his dinner. That'd be interesting. A little interval signal before we start. A mix of Paul the cat meowing and something else in the background, radio-wise. Matt says anything is possible, but one of the worst teams in the NHL. What the heck happened? They were playing for the Cup just a couple of seasons ago. Upsetting one of the oddest is generally a tall order. Yeah, you know, it's like us. It's like last year they were in the finals. This year is like a bunch of. Anyways, it's every year isn't the same. I can tell you that. DVDX, there's digital DVDX out there, especially during Tropo openings. Jerome's, nice to have you here. Zenfaros, my previous cat would go out at any temperature. My current cat will not go out in the cold for more than a nanosecond. The 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 what was I saying? Last year, Mignon was mostly outside, so she spent all of her days at minus 20, minus 30 degrees Celsius. In the cold of winter, I didn't like it because we had quite a few nights at minus 20, 25, and I didn't like that. She spent all the days, in outside in the nights. But she went through winter fine. She just came in when she was hungry. She would come over. She would, and it's so funny because the cats, they have found two spots underneath the fence in the backyard where there's just enough space that they can actually pass through to go from one yard to the other. But when it snows and we have snowstorms, those are now full of snow. They can't pass anymore. And she was just climbing the fence, walking on top of the fence, and then coming to my side. It was just so funny. Just so funny. And Paul the cat, of course, as usual, was like, yeah, I'm just going to go on the tip of the balcony for 2 minutes and then come back in because I'm not staying out there. But this year, both cats are kind of, Mignon is now she's pretty much very relaxed with the environment and what's happening. She used to panic at everything. She does a little bit sometimes at very specific, unusual things, but she's kind of much more relaxed this year. So she's spending all the day in. So, Kathleen, nice to have you on board. What Hubble download stream? Yep, that company said called the company that made the boosters. They didn't want to launch, actually. You should have listened. Matt says, still remember when that happened? Also the Columbia disaster, though that was different. It was cool visiting the Kennedy Space Center and seeing the retired shuttle Atlantis in person. That is one thing that I've always wanted to go, to visit the Kennedy Space Center. I went to the U.S. up and down the East Coast in the 90s, and I never really, never went there. Angpar, no problem. Nice to have you here. Sheldon Harvey sharing the North American QSO party SSB. Starting at 18 Zulu today, 2:05:59 tomorrow. So there's going to be a lot of activity in the bands. Randall Klons, nice to have you here from Chicago area. Benny Charbonnier from Radio Classic Sunday. Nice to have you here from the Netherlands, my friend. Rob, nice to have you on board from Phoenix, Arizona. Mickey Dalmich says, if you want to try TVDXing, you want to get in touch with former HJB DX party line host Rich McVicker. He is well versed in that part of the hobby. Yeah, and I actually have seen a lot of pictures of things that he DXed and received on his own. So there's definitely some possibility. David in Barcelona says, wasn't around for the Challenger disaster happened, but I very much remember the disbelief I felt when a Spanish TV newscast showed footage of Columbia. Yeah, that one also on YouTube, you'll find it. The documentary of the Columbia accident is also very interesting. There were a lot of people that said, they're not sure we should, actually, I remember one of the phrases of in that documentary when one of the guys that was at the at NASA said, "Let's ask the Defense Department," and then he said, "Let's beg the Defense Department to take one of their satellites to take pictures of the shuttle so we could see by ourselves." And that was denied. And when I think about that, I'm like, come on, guys. Why is it that nobody and every darn agency can't work together? There's always that, oh, no, no, we're defense. We have nothing to do with you guys. I just can't with that kind of crap happening all the time. Because, maybe they would have seen that there was a hole in the wing. And, they said the other shuttle wasn't that far off. If they jumped a few steps, they were able to, you know, push the other shuttle up and go save the guys. So it's stupid decisions and stupid, policy making of every agency. No wonder there's always some disaster at some point. There's always this idiot way of thinking and doing stuff all the time. Greg, yes, okay. Rob, glad to see you feeling better. Yeah, I got my booster shot on Wednesday afternoon, and I had a lot of. Actually, Wednesday was kind of one of those days you wake up, you think it's going to be an easy day. You have your booster shot, you have a live show, and you think everything's going to be fine. And 10 minutes after you're up, something is happening that I'm not planned, and I have to attend. And then it's like, okay, I've got to go to my booster shot, and all of that is just happening together. And man, about an hour and a half, 2 hours after the booster shot, man, I got so tired. My body was definitely fighting something. But it lasted only that evening. The next morning, I was pretty okay. So, Zen Pharaohs, just saw the radio sun going downwards through frequency range at around 7,500. I can't remember one going that direction. Yeah, usually they always go up, but it's possible. Wow, somebody's doing a whistling. If you guys tune 7295, go and check it out. Somebody is interfering, and I don't know, but there's some whistling going on. 7295. And it's on the waterfall. You see a zigzag going on, like it's going on one side and the other. Even in the audio peak, you see the audio peak move left and right and left and right. It's like, wow. Matt says Columbia disaster happened in the early morning hours. My wife had woken up before me. Yeah, it was a Saturday, absolutely. And was upset enough by the news to come wake me up. TVDXer, what's the best online retailer to buy the MLA30 from? That answer is not. There's no real answer to it. I look at the one that's selling it for the price that I want to pay, which typically is roughly around $40. Okay, if the guy has that price, that is that's fine. Just buy it. That's what I did. I went on eBay and I just saw the guy selling it for like, I don't know, $41. I thought, okay, that's my price. And I clicked on it. Some guys have it for 30 some US. Just don't go over 50. Over 50 now it's overpriced. But there's, just find somebody that's selling it. And the only thing that might be the problem is they're all coming from, a lot of them are coming from China. So you might have to wait quite a long time before you get it. Yeah, some guy definitely is making. I've heard yesterday somebody was hearing sirens and stuff. Maybe it's not a siren. Maybe what you were hearing is this: some guy just fiddling with the But there's definitely some guy just like it's as if he's on the radio and he just like is changing the frequency while transmitting all the time to create interference. But definitely hear the whistling, and the whistling is changing all the time. It's very weird. 7295. Bill N8UUP, nice to have you on board, and Happy New Year to you also from Michigan. Let's go down. I'm 20 minutes behind. What do we have? Zanfaros has CHU 3330. Near New York City, 7850 is S9 Plus with low noise. Cool. Our JDA Dakota was at work when the Columbia disaster happened. I think it was a Thursday. I can't be wrong. No, Columbia was on a Saturday. I remember it was a weekend. It was really a weekend. Yeah, maps of the FM transmitters. PLF radios are showing a loop antenna. So check it out here. Portable active loop antenna. $42.99. That's interesting. And you know what? That looks like an MLA 30. Portable active loop antenna. Loop antennas for SDR. Shielded loop, Mobius loop, U-loop preamp. Yeah, that definitely looks like some kind of spin-off of a MLA 30. Because technically an MLA 30 is you can define an MLA 30 as being a portable loop antenna, honestly. Yeah, Greg, I know. Told you a little earlier with your receiver. You went long wave FM, SSB, and airband. Try to get it here. Joe says, like monitoring transatlantic air traffic on HF, I'm using an MLA 30 Plus with my RSP1A. Is there a better antenna to use to better receive the air traffic signals? Honestly, because if you're using an MLA 30 because it's noisy in your environment, you're probably using the best setup possible. Remember that these are very low power. You know, when the plane answers back, the plane is not sending, a couple of kilowatts. It's much weaker because there's a distance that the air traffic control will, kind of work a station. And then, of course, the traffic will shift to another ATC, another air traffic control in another region. It's just a question of noise around you. And what's preventing you from hearing maybe a little better is more the noise than having any other setup. That said, if you live in a low noise environment, you can try setting up, like 50 or 100 feet of wire if you have the capability. And maybe that could help because in low noise, 100 feet of wire beats the MLA 30. But you have to have low noise. If you have a lot of noise around you, it won't work very well. But it's a challenge, And remember also that, because somebody has asked me once, said, well, I live in the East Coast. I never hear the air traffic control from the West Coast, San Francisco. And I said, well, there's a very simple explanation for that. Remember that they're broadcasting towards planes on the Atlantic. They are actually sending that signal towards the Atlantic because that's where the bulk of the signal needs to be. So if you're trying to get on the East Coast, San Francisco, and the West Coast, well, it's a tough one because San Francisco is sending the signal towards the Pacific Ocean. It's away from you. So when you send a signal in an opposite direction from where you are, you already are dealing with a signal that is much weaker. And then, it's got to cross all of North America. So there's all sorts of things like that that makes air traffic control listening a tough one. And hearing the planes is a good challenge also. Cygnus Rider, similar to Texan DR910, is their DR920C model, which has been described as DR912 with a digital frequency display. Yeah, I got the 920. I don't have the C model. I have the 920, the one that came before that has a digital frequency readout. Actually, it's pretty much the explanation that you would have is fair. A Texan R9012 with a frequency counter. What's the difference in the frequency counter and the digital display? Two types of displays on radios. You have the display that could be a frequency counter, and there's the PLL receivers that have a digital readout. Now, both of them will display the frequency, but there's a big difference. A PLL receiver with digital readout is much more precise in the frequency displays. Also, it is stable. It will not drift. Where a radio like the DR920C with a frequency counter, the frequency counter actually counts according to the radio's intermediate frequency, what frequency you are tuned to approximately. And what happens, it will display the frequency. You're usually somewhat precise. You'll be plus or minus 5 kilohertz in there. But the problem is it's an analog radio. So if it's an analog radio, you have drifting going on. And on an analog radio with frequency counter, like the DR920C, well, you'll have some drift going on all the time. So you have to readjust. Frank, nice to have you here. ZZ Top Style. Yeah, pretty much. All I need is the guitar to flip. Do you agree that the Yaesu 891 is far more better the receiver than any Texans? First of all, you're comparing receivers that can be compared at all. So that's a tough one. It's like comparing a Texan radio with my Kenwood or 5000 and so on. They're two different beasts. They're different radios. Far more better? No. Better? Probably. It all has to do with the price range and what you have as capabilities on the Yaesu. So a lot of the Yaesus today have this noise reduction feature because they're technically all pretty much SDRs. They're software-defined receivers within a box that looks like a radio with knobs. And that adds, features that a Texan doesn't have, because a Texan is not an SDR. A Texan is a radio, a good old radio that has the limits of its technology as a standard radio. So you can't compare. You can't compare anything like that. Because I'm not going to tell people to go buy a Yaesu or whatever to listen to shortwave. Especially here, because most people don't have the money for that. So the features and the capabilities that you have on a Yaesu, of course, there's a lot of things that can make it fetch a signal better. That's totally possible. But that is mostly with today's radios that are software-defined receivers in the box. Go back in time, choose a desktop receiver that is a standard radio, like the ICOM ICR 8500 or the Kenwood R5000. I'm going to tell you, very frankly, and you probably have noticed, do I use my ICOM or my Kenwood? You see me using my portable or my SDR all the time. Why? Because I don't see an advantage in using the Kenwood R5000 or the ICOM here. And they're big radios, and I like using SDRs more because of the visuals. And honestly, there's not that much of a difference between an older style PLL desktop receiver than today's modern Texan H501X or 990X receivers. Those radios have reached a level of reception that's amazing. But what makes, for example, that Yaesu transceiver different is um, the fact that since they are SDRs and they have computerized features, now you add stuff that a standard radio doesn't have. You had some really cool noise reduction features if you want, like an SDR. Um, that's the thing. Zen Pharaoh says 5940, Algérienne, Radio Algérienne with the Holy Quran from France. Catalan says 100 likes missing. Oh, man. Sergeant Rock, nice to have you on board. Sunny, 75 degrees. And nice to have you here, my friend. It's actually a short throw CRT in the ICOM R3. It was before TFT. Okay. Because there was one of the ICOMs with a TFT, if I remember. It gets analog, NTSC, and other modes. Yes, we are live, PhilTube. You shortwave listening tonight? Yeah, we'll listen, of course. Dave Conte in Bronx, New York. Very loud signal on 13560, which interferes with adjacent broadcast stations. Do you receive this in Montreal? 13560 is a frequency for all sorts of instrumentation. So science instrumentation, medical stuff. These are local signals to you. So if you have one that is very loud, that's because you're very close to something. If there's an hospital near where you are, could come from there. It could come from all sorts of things that are up and running with all sorts of telemetry. What anybody will hear on 13560 is always around you. It's not propagating over shortwave. Vinay Madhavadi, nice to have you here. Stephen J. Roberts from Scotland, nice to have you on board. St. Pharaohs, that's 5980, Voice of Turkey. Cygnus Rider was down to -7 Fahrenheit this morning. So says enjoyed cooking dinner in the oven for today for sure. Challenger was April. Challenger was February. I think it was January or February of 1986. I think it was January of 1986. I don't remember the exact date. N6RLS, nice to have you here from Berkeley, California. Matt says, I can highly recommend visiting the Kennedy Space Center to anyone. They have so much cool stuff there, I'm sure. Zen Pharaohs has nothing on 13560. Harold Anderson, have you been a lot on the air as a ham now after you got your ham license? Nice to have you here, LB1NH from Norway. I've not been on the air much because of lack of a decent antenna that I need to check into. I have been checking 10 meters every day because that's where right now I can transmit. So if I hear anything on 10 meters, you can bet I'll call CQ. But for the rest, since I'm not set up, I've been a little bit on the 2-meter band and 70 centimeters with the Yaesu FT65, doing a few little things. And I did talk to a couple of hams on 2 meters about radio, and actually had a nice chat on a repeater with a guy that been a ham for a long time. And I know for a long time because I've been hearing him with scanner radios in the 90s. And actually, I checked in to let him know that I was a fan because he had all sorts of things that he were doing, including one that was a balloon launch with a repeater on it, which was really amazing. And I knew it was him, so I wanted to check in and just say that I had a lot of fun with my scanners, listening to that balloon experiment repeater and all the stations coming through, and he had a lot of it was nice because he had a lot of technical talk and stuff on the air. We ended up talking for maybe 45 minutes. He was really happy to see that I was become a ham and so on. And so we talked a little bit of technical stuff, and I was expressing the fact that I have the impression that there's less willing people today to do things like the repeater balloon launch and stuff. And he was actually kind of agreeing with me that it's quieter and there's not a lot of people that want to go out there and do stuff. It's mainly people getting their hand licenses and just being quiet. So yeah, when I have an occasion, I will absolutely, but I need to set up an antenna. And right now, there's about 1.5 feet of snow in the background in the backyard, if not 2 feet. So kind of hard one to go set up an antenna right now. J-Man Ranger, nice to have you on board from Alabama, KI4WYV. Yeah, it's something like the 26th or the 28th or something like that. I was in school. I remember it was a school day for me. PLF Radio, will I do a ham contact during a live show one day? Actually, what we'll do, PLF Radio, when I'm set up properly and I can actually call CQ on a band like 40 meters or 20 meters, what I plan to do is a live on the ham channel to do contacts live. I'll be doing some contacts live, and possibly do it here a few times because maybe it's gonna, kind of spark the interest of some of you to become ham radio operators. But definitely, there's going to be something like that. Mobile Armor Strike Command, nice to have you here. Dimitri, nice to have you on board. Darren Rogers, nice to have you here from Long Island, New York. Zen Pharaohs, just to make clear, I can receive in that band 13630 program about Bar Marley from China. Yeah, that's China Radio from Mali transmitter sites. Bobby Burgess, I was T-minus 18 months when that happened. I was in my last year of high school and before going to college. And I was just like, man, just I got home because the school is, like at the end of the street. So I would go for lunch at home, for dinner at noon, and got home, the standard stuff all the time. Even when I was in my last year of high school, I always got a kick of watching the Flintstones, which was always playing on one of the TV channels here at noon. Probably because they knew that kids were back home and eating. But that day I got back home, sat down, and my mom said, "Oh, I don't know if you've heard, but the space shuttle exploded," and it put me in a kind of a gloomy feeling for the rest of the day. It was like something for me, which I'm passionate of space exploration and astronomy and science. For me, it's as if somebody would have hit me, with a stick or something. It's like it made me sad, and all afternoon and going back to school, of course, that afternoon, we were all talking about it. We were all talking about, hey, you see the space shuttle exploded and so on. It was something. I remember that day we had when I went back to school, it was French class, and the teacher mentioned, um, you know, the space shuttle a little bit and all of that, but he was not very scientific. And I raised my hand and I, kind of corrected him on the little something that he had said. And we ended up the afternoon talking about it. And at some point, everybody was asking me questions because suddenly I was the space shuttle expert. And it was like, well, that's my knowledge because I follow the program and I love space exploration. But, so everybody was asking me questions about, it was an interesting evening. Matt, bad bureaucratic decisions were why the Hubble Space Telescope went up with a band mirror. They just didn't think testing was necessary. Another penny-wise and pound-foolish decision. Yeah, it's like the the Challenger is one. I think that's in the documentary of the Challenger when they were saying that the guy that O'Keefe, I think was his last name, that was managing NASA was not. He was a money guy. Um, he was there to let's try to save money and work this as if this is, and all of these contractors from the private side, and in that documentary they say, when you push the shuttle to its limits with budget cuts and no safety margin, you're getting in a very dangerous zone. And let's face it, the space shuttle is a beautiful machine. It was an amazing machine. It was very complex, but it never was anything else than an experimental vehicle. Even the last space shuttle launch was still an experiment with that thing. They never were able to bring it to this is now, safe and beautiful. And I think which marked a lot of our imagination there also is, they had put so much emphasis that the teacher was in space. For the first time, somebody that is not an astronaut, for the first time, somebody that is, an everyday Joe that does his job, in this case, a teacher, is now in space. So this is the future. Well, I'm sorry, but it didn't happen. We start seeing some of the stuff. I'll be very. I don't want to be negative about it, but I see like SpaceX and all of that with their programs where they're planning on having rich people going into space. And one of the first thing I thought is be careful with what you're doing there, because one day, because even though SpaceX has got an incredible amount of experience now, one day you're gonna have one that's gonna blow up, and there might be a billionaire in it, and that's gonna put you in the face of nope. It's still very complicated to go to space, and you cannot play with it as this is a tourist thing and it's going to be fine and everything is going to be fine, because there will be at some point always something going wrong, because these things are so complex and it's so difficult to really bring, to put something into space is a very complex thing. St. Faros is confirming whistling on 7295. Since Farrell says, I reported some weird SSB, LSB stuff outside the ham bands in the Facebook group, and this seems like those guys again, listening for Spanish language. So the James Webb Space Telescope fully deployed and getting close to the L2 point. So this is going to be nice to see the first science stuff coming out of there. I can tell you that. Definitely going to be really, really nice. Okay, let's see. Try to. David McCormick says yesterday was sirens and music. Matt says 72.95. I see it too. Probably some ham goofing around. That's what I think also. At Crafter 72.95 loud and clear in Maine. Someone is trying to be annoying. Yeah. And Max, earlier when I was testing out my ATS 25, someone was blasting music on 7200. It might be the same person. Yeah, that frequency is a mess. Vince 7295, really clear with the whistling. Jeff King, I was living just east of the Space Center in a small motel. We were sitting on the porch listening to the newscast when the launched the Challenger. We watched it blow up. Man, that's sad. Imagine being there witnessing. I can just imagine imagine particularly the class with all the kids that the teacher was, seeing your teacher, seeing the shuttle blow up and the teacher. And they were actually saying that they weren't still alive when it blew up. They were still alive because when they found the cabin crew in the ocean, some of the crew had started to put on the emergency stuff, which means when it blew up, it gave a big shock. But some of them are still alive, and maybe thinking that they still could be saved. I'm not sure they realized that the shuttle wasn't there anymore. That it was just a crew capsule. But man. Bill Curry and 8UUP Pirate, a little louder in Michigan on 6925, playing music. Pretty weak, though. I'm Apper. Nice to have you on board. Says Texan H501 on Amazon. Is it the same as the one you reviewed recently? Texan H501, yep. If it doesn't have an X, it's just that it's not the export version, but it's pretty much the same radio anyways. Metalunar, they must be making abstract art with the waterfall in 7295. Man. Paul Steckler learned the Challenger disaster from a taxi driver in Washington, D.C. on my way to a job interview. Wow, didn't get a job. Yeah, it might have, like put you in a mood that, well, you know what? Manolis, nice to have you here. M0IUR. Cygnus Rider, January 28th, 1986, the day the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded on a Tuesday. So at 11:39 a.m., I got home to eat lunch. It was maybe noon. So, And yep, the Columbia shuttle was on February 1st, 2003. No, Columbia was not on a Monday. I'm pretty sure it was on a Saturday. I'm pretty sure it was on a Saturday. It was a weekend, the Columbia. Let me check it out here. It was February 1st, that I know. Columbia. Because it's weird. I really, really am sure it was a Saturday. Columbia disaster 2003. Just curious because I am pretty sure it was a Saturday. Unless I was lost in my stuff, but so what day? February 1st. 3. That was a Saturday. I'm right. February 1st, 2003 is a Saturday, Sheldon. Because I was pretty sure it was a Saturday because something about it reminded me there was a Saturday. So it's a Saturday, not a Monday, Sheldon. If you look at the calendar, February 1st, 2003 is a Saturday. I'm going to check it out, PLF Radio, for that loop antenna. They could they could take the MLA30 and change the box and put some other, loop on it and call it whatever, the ABC 14, and it's kind of an MLA30. Those are all designed pretty much in the same way, for basically. Um, Nothing, there's not much difference between all of them. BXRPL, nice to have you here from Poland. 2222 Malaya Lam Electronics. Nice to have you here. Yeah, make it damage for Saturday. Greg, I have a tablet. What kind of SDR should I get? What tablet do you have? Is it a Windows tablet or a Android tablet? Because you got to forget about an SDR on a iPad. Jimmy Doe, nice to have you here. K6YYL, nice to have you on board from California. Watching our three sway back and forth with each gust of wind was terrifying. We have a crew here now taking the tree down. I'm really sad to see it go. Could have fallen injured people. Yeah. We got a big one here. There's a big maple tree right next to the house. I can tell you, every time we have like a really big windstorm, I look at it move and all, and I'm like, yeah, someday that thing is going to. Almost every 2 to 3 years, one of the big branches falls down, and you have to go and kind of trim the tree a little more and examine if it's all right. MDK2, well, I'm thinking about it. What time is your ham radio show going to be? I know the plan is for the last Sunday of the month. So it's going to be the last Sunday, which is January the 30th, if I'm not mistaken. 29, 30, yep. So January the 30th, it's 20 hours Universal Time, same time as the Shortwave show on Saturday. So next week, we'll have the Shortwave show on Saturday at 20 UT. And we'll have the ham radio show on the ham radio channel on Sunday at 20 hours UTC. So I'm just going to remind everybody that in a few minutes. If I got any mods on any radio, I've done mods on desktop receivers, like some of the receivers I've done mods. The ones that are more have more space to to work in, but I've rarely done mods on little portables. It's just so cramped up, and I've doing soldering and all of that. You have to do it all the time and continue doing it, and doing it with new technology to keep in shape if you want. But since I've not been doing a lot of soldering in many years, I prefer not to touch the radios pretty much. Dimitri, how far can you do DXing with your license? Around the world, man. Around the world. I have all HF capability. I could, in a good propagation and a good band and not too much noise, hey, can make it to Australia. Since Farrow says, Joe is correct about SDR and modern portables. It is once in a while that the FRG7 or Drake R8 can edge out a signal better than an SDRs, but that's rare. Little things are amazing. Yeah, the ICOM ICRD 500 is actually here. I'm actually going to do a little change. I want to put the big radios, so the Kenwood R5000, the ICOM, and my Yaesu FT450 are going to be on that side where I have the display of the SDR. And I want to have that dedicated to the desktop receivers and to the capabilities of amateur radio that I'll get as I put up an antenna at some point. I had a little idea about an antenna because it all looks like an inverted L is maybe an interesting idea for me. And it looks like an inverted L in the front yard instead of the backyard might actually be an interesting idea for me. So I'll be looking at that anyways. But mostly to make sure that the antenna feed is easy to bring in my home also. Derek, have you ever had a chance to test the Texan S8800? Wondering how it compares in terms of performance with the other Texans. I've never tested one. I know a lot of people that have um, played with it. Some people seem to be happy with it, but I can't really say much about it. I haven't really played much. Greg, Asus tablet. Okay, it's running what? Android? Is it a Chrome tablet, like a Chromebook? Running Android or running Windows? It's the operating system that's important for me. Because depending on what you were going to tell me, then Jetcrafter getting a signal here in Maine on 13560 sounds like high pitched engine running. Yep, some local machine making that noise around you. Bob Cantor, and I say, have you here from Long Island, New York, enjoying the heck of my new Malahit Chinese clone. Works better than I expected. Thanks for your coverage of this radio. Oh, yeah, if you got one that works well, it is surprisingly nice. Absolutely. Mind Reader DXer UK, nice to have you on board. Harold Anderson, very nice history. Then Pharaohs for fans of interval signals, 7375, following Radio Romania broadcast in Romanian. John Gary, I've done with my ham radio study. I'm Victor Echo 2 Zulu Zulu India, my friend. Have it all HF capabilities. John Hummel Newell, VE5JHN. Nice to have you on board, having fun with FT8. Cool. Cool. Matt, a lot of schools in the U.S. had kids in assembly and their auditoriums watching on TV, but not for me. But they did announce it over the PA and the entire student body when it happened. Well, Charlie McKee agreed, Joe, the Challenger disaster was a gut punch for all space fans. It still is a painful memory. Yep, definitely. Definitely. As a kid, particularly, and even today, but as a kid that loves space exploration, you have to face it, whatever country you are from. NASA inspires amazing things, amazing science, amazing ideas. And it is definitely something that is always, a huge um, shock when something major like that happens. But me as a kid, I remember particularly in the I remember when I got pictures. I still remember that I got pictures from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California. I was about 13 years old, 12 years old. Somehow I had the weird idea, and that's how weird sometimes a kid could be. I had an idea that I'm going to write to JPL a letter telling them that I enjoy science and technology and stuff. And I remember at the end of my letter, I said, if you have any, um, any anything you can send me about space, about that, and I got this big envelope, thick envelope with, maybe 25 to 30 pictures taken by the Voyager spacecraft of Jupiter and Saturn. I spent afternoons watching at these. These were like 8 by 10 pictures. They weren't like little small things. You know, in 1980, 1981, there's a lot more budget than today for that. And man, I was fascinated. And I remember my friend Jean Pierre, we went together. It's like, look at these pictures. And he wrote and he got pictures too. And we were just, for us, for a 12-year-old kid, JPL, NASA, in your head, the bureaucracy doesn't exist. As a kid, in your head, these are agencies that are making miracles and wonders with science. It's the only thing you think of. And it's the same as when you grow up and go to school. They ask you what you want to be someday. The problem with that question is we see it with our kids' eyes. So you might say, I want to be an astronaut. It looks cool. It looks fun. And it's like, I'm going to go to school. I'm going to go and fetch all the diplomas necessary and so on until you get to the point of how it works. I don't want to say, I'm not going to go there much, but I'm going to say one thing. Just looking at how astronauts are chosen in Canada, you look at that and you're like, yeah, there's a lot more politics in it. And it's not true that it's 100% fair choice. The choice is kind of dependent on some of the politics going on at the time. And in the US, I'm sure it's the same thing. And we're going to just leave it at that. But, that's where from a kid to an adult, you realize that the world that you see when you're a kid and the world that you see as an adult is a very different world. And, in some cases it works, but in some cases it doesn't. And I'm sure there's a lot of frustrated people out there that it didn't work because they noticed, okay, that's the way it works. Okay, well, the hell with it. Jetcrafter, U.S. Air Force Emergency Action Messages 4724. Lots of activity on the air traffic control 6577, by the way. Look at that. So 4724. Let's park our radio here. And we'll see when some of these messages happen. Hey Sid, nice to have you on board from Black Country, UK. Any thoughts on the new Elect 91 Ballon to use with SDRs? They're only a few pounds. Just wondering if they would come down on local interference. It depends on the setup that you have. In some cases, it can. And honestly, if they're cheap and in a price range that you're like, I have nothing to lose, get one and try it out. It can in some cases. Here I had the sloper on a 9-1 Ballon, and it just I didn't see any difference. But try it out because you never know. What else do we have? Yeah, like Joe Tyson says, not if it happens, but when it will happen. Yeah, absolutely. Bobby Burgess, tech question alert. If you are in a Zoom conference on your phone and you had to lock your phone, does it stop the meeting in progress? Well, you'll be removed from the meeting. Because I think when you lock your phone, you're getting out of the meeting. If you're hosting the meeting, it will end the meeting. And if you're just a participant in the meeting, you're going to be just kicked out. You're going to drop out of it. Ken Lansing, what's your opinion on the Xiegu G1M as an entry-level radio? There's something interesting on 4724. Almost sounds like some kind of digital signal has just gone over it for a moment. I don't have experience with those transceivers and stuff, but I've read a lot of good things about that. The Xiegu receiver transceivers. Yeah. What is that? 4724. Almost sounds like 58 or something. That is so weird. Let me just check the SDR here. 4724. That is weird. Come on. Is it just a Texan receiver? Look at that. That is weird. I'm wondering if I have found a flaw in the Texan H501X. I have for that to hear it again. Huh. That is weird. An image of some sort? Yeah, the lack of an escape system, David, absolutely. VT Radio, nice to have you here, Paul AA1SU from a frigid northern Vermont. Minus 13 Fahrenheit last night. So here we're at +2 Fahrenheit, and we had minus 30 Celsius, which is, I think, minus 22 Fahrenheit. Martin, send you an email via your ham radio email address. Martin, I'll be checking it out. Richard Lemke says disco lights behind me. Yeah, I put the lamp in a changing. I thought it would be, kind of entertaining to have it in changing colors. And I like the fact that at the corner like that, it actually looks like a flame on the wall at some point. So I thought, yeah, why not? I'll be looking at that. By the way, that the guy Larry Dayo, the guy that has that show on WRMI that also has live shows, wants to interview me for his YouTube channel. I need to get back to him later today. John Gary, please explain what's going on with the buzzer UVB76. Anybody's guess, man. One of the things for sure is that the buzzer itself has changed in its tone and what it is. And there seems to be a lot of jamming going on lately with stations popping up, and we know that possibly a lot of the stations jamming it are from Ukraine, and there's all sorts of things being sent out. There's memes being sent out through the waterfall of SDRs, with troll faces and stuff like that. Yesterday on the channel, I saw some decoding some slow scan television also. So there's all sorts of things happening there. With the tensions getting, even more of a problem between Ukraine and Russia. I think there's a lot of that's going to happen, and more is going to happen in the next weeks. Vicky Pelletier, nice to have you here. Still in learning process about the RF. So I was listening in SDR online to 583296 kilohertz yesterday on 40 meters. What can you tell me about that? Interesting, please. Because for 5832 is not 40 meters, and 5830, I believe, has an international broadcast station. What were you hearing exactly, Vicky? Take care, Mad Radio DXer. Two Broke Tim was at Cape Kennedy when it launched. Saw it happen. Wow. Oh, 4724. Something just popped up. 4724. Might be, yep. There we go. A tone. Or some tone on 4724. Greg, tell me what operating system it has. And do not ask the question 15 times. I'll see it. Don't worry. But I am behind in the chat room. I'm 20 minutes behind. A little more. What else do we have? James Gilbert, nice to have you here in Melbourne. Got Radio España, Exterior de España booming on 12030. It has been really clear between 18 and 23 UT daily for months. Cool. Joey D, nice to have you on board from New Jersey. Says, looks like the Overcomer Ministry lives on long after Brother Stair. Most figured, yeah, they are blasting the airwaves at that Brother Stair crap. Charlie McKee, curious about your color changing light over your left shoulder. It strikes me it would be perfect for interference problems. It's very quiet, honestly. I have not noticed anything on interference with it. I took a chance. So the bulbs that I have here are all color changing. They're all smart bulbs. So I can use my smartphone and I can actually switch the colors and whatever. So, of course, that's the first thing that you think is, yeah, well, I'd like to try that, but what kind of noise is going to add to what's happening here? So the bulbs, changing colored bulbs, are Philips branded, Philips Hue, and they are zero noise. On or off. The only noise you get is really if you are next to it with the radio, you'll hear noise. But as soon as you move 2 to 3 feet away, whether it's on or off or unplugged or plugged in, I see no difference. So they're very quiet. Now this is a little different. That one is a Chinese branded lamp, and I wanted to have one of those because I don't like lamps that just shove light on your table or stuff like that. I like something that kind of sends the light up and diffuses over the room. And I saw it, and it was an interesting price point, and I thought I'd like to have one of those. So I thought I'm going to try it, and if it's too noisy, well, I could with Amazon I can always send it back. Plugged it in, programmed it with my phone because it's also a smart lamp, so I can change it with my phone. If I want, I can just go here and with my phone, I'll just if I want to stop the colors and I want to like a real white lamp, I can just do this, and here we go. And I can put it, yellowish white or really bluish white or white. So this is what it is. And this is pretty bright, by the way. Maybe it doesn't show that much there, but it's very bright. Or I can go to colors, and then I will choose whatever color I want to have here. And I'll write I want to have it, and so on. I just choose a color I want. And of course, right now it was in a color changing mode. But no surprise. It's very surprising how they're not doing any noise on my radios, and I'm very happy about that. Oh, really? The glass? Yeah. Let's try to go down as fast as possible. Jimmy Doe, I see you have a Bearcat CB radio. Yep, the 980 SSB right there. I haven't used it in a little while though, but yep, I do have one there. San Farrows, my cat just reminded me of the advantages of big desktop radio. It doesn't really fit on top of a PL330. Yeah, if he does, it's like you'll be spending 2 hours trying to find your Texan PL330 and you don't know where it is. It's under the cat. Juan Martinez, do you have any do-it-yourself antennas for Uniden digital scanners? I'm pretty much, for scanner radios, I pretty much always buy my antennas. Currents IT guy, yeah, there's a lot of jamming going on with the UVB 764625. It's really that's happening mostly. Mark Pentler, don't use a 9-1 Baldwin for a loop. You want a 4-1, really? Sorry if you've answered already. Make sure that you turn the Baldwin into an Unen with the track cut. David McCormick got his YouTube yesterday. It's working well on the SDR Play RSPDX. Dimitri, which direction your transmitter's antennas point, and how many contacts do you have with American ham radio operators? Actually, right now, like I said, I only have 10 meters, and I use a discount for it. So it's omnidirectional pretty much. I've got a contact with a station from Alberta, Canada. I seem to have gone really well from there. Joe, I've heard people talk about upgrading their older portable radios and getting them capped. What is capping? Capping is simply meaning that they are having the radio fixed or changed all the capacitors inside them. So the most the part, the electronics component that has the most chance of breaking down are capacitors. As they age, they lose their properties. Some of them even can swell, and and all sorts of things can happen. So recapped means that the radio's capacitors are removed and brand new capacitors are fitted in there to make sure that they are in good shape. Even though a lot of the capacitors are like in 30, 40, 50 years old and still work great, capacitors definitely are probably the weak link, much more than anything else. Transistors are tough. Even chips are very tough. Resistors, they might change value over time, but in general, it's we don't really have much of a problem with resistors or some of these coils, stuff like that. Doesn't really change much over years. But capacitors, because of the way they are, think of capacitors as a type of kind of rechargeable battery, if you want, in a way, because what they do is take charge and discharge depending on what the circuit asks that capacitor. So some of them charge and discharge, dozens and hundreds and thousands of times per day. Over time, that can actually cause some wear and tear on those devices. Think of capacitors. What we always say, that rechargeable batteries don't have, they have a shelf life. There's an amount of time that they'll be going bad, and there's a number of charges that are going to make them go bad. Think of capacitors as a kind of rechargeable device that takes charge and discharge, and over time it will go bad, and all capacitors will eventually go bad, and that's why they want to recap. But some of them can. I mean, there are 60-year-old capacitors that still work well. But modern day capacitors, if they are well designed, usually last decades. But it's probably the weak link in all the electronics we have. Brian Chappell says your JPL story reminds me of when I wrote to the White Shell Nuclear Research Establishment with a question, and they sent me a box of free booklets, some of which were still useful when I got to university. And it's cool, you get that. You're not expecting it. You get that, and there's tons of things to read. I wrote to the Smithsonian, and I got back a really nice book about life in the universe, and how and of course it's with the ideas of the 80s, but how maybe contact could be done, and how many civilizations there could be out there. And I mean, in the 80s, that was before we started seeing that. Look at that, there's planets everywhere on every star that we look at. That was before that. And I mean, I loved it. I read that thing through dozens of times. Zenfaros confirmed 4724 USB has some digital modulation. Yeah, it's some weird modulation. So I'm not going crazy. There's still some right now. What does it sound like? It sounds like Olivia, or what could it be? 4724. It's almost as if, because it goes on and off, almost as if there was some kind of digital mode conversation going on. Zenfaros 4724 500 hertz digital mode is not an artifact of your Texan. I have it on the AirSpy HF Plus Discovery and the Drake R8. I'm hearing it now. Randall Klontz, D808. How do I change the medium wave step from 9 to 10? I think my D808 is just here. So let's check it out live. Do I have it here? Yep, it's here. Oh, man. So, I believe if I could see right, let me just check the writing on the. So 9 to 10 is done with the 0 button. So with the radio off, yep, that's it. So with the radio off, the 0 button, okay, when the radio's off, you press and hold. And like it says, medium wave 10, 9. Whoops. Medium wave 9, and then you click. So you see, I've switched. So hold. When it blinks, you click and you choose the one you want, 9 or 10. So I'm going to leave it at 10. So press, hold. Once you see it blinking, immediately click, press again, quickly, to change between 9 or 10 and choose the one you want. Hope it helps. Yeah, I know it's an Asus, Greg, but that doesn't tell me what it's running. Asus tablets can be running Android. It could be a Chromebook. It could be a Windows tablet. I have no idea what tablet it is and what operating system you're running on it. Anton RC3C from Moscow, Russia. Nice to have you on board. Okay, let's try to join. Yeah, Paul, my Windows Computers and Technology channel. John Hummel Newell says Larry's a great guy. Yeah, I'm going to contact him later on. Check out how we're going to do it. N6RLS Challenger. Remember waking up to Dan Rather on CBS Radio? It was only on radio when some big news that was happening. Horrible feeling at the time. Jetcrafter, the tone 4724 is also heard here on the other frequencies at the same time in Maine. JDA Dakota says most Philips LEDs are really good on quiet on RFI. Yeah. They're more expensive than the standard bulbs, but they definitely are great. Peter, your live ham radio show title? I don't know yet, but my channel is the VE2 Zulu India amateur radio channel. You have it by going to youtube.com/official VHF UHF channel, because the URL I will not change. Jace, to do ham radio, do you need big antennas? What do you use? You need a decent antenna. It doesn't need to be necessarily a big antenna, but you need something that is decent enough. But there's all sorts of antennas out there. Mine will be an inverted L possibly. And of course, it takes some space outside. But I've seen people do contacts with just a random length of wire, properly matched to the transceiver and do contacts from all over the world. Rinmots, electronics capacitors, fluid chemistry is like batteries. Plastic capacitors are more solid states and last longer. David McCormick, very sad to Columbia disaster. I was following Kalpana Chawla's carrier. She was the first woman of Indian origin to go to space. Oh yeah, I remember there was a MFSK. That sounds like MFSK. Some kind of MFSK modulation. Yeah. Christian Marcus, salut. J'espère que ça va bien. Nice to have you here from North Bay, Ontario. David, the SMD capacitors are the worst, especially those in devices made in the 90s. As far as I know, there were old batches of them made with incorrectly formulated electrolytes. The surface mount devices stuff. Current SMD caps should be okay, though, as that mishap has already corrected long ago. And, it happens that companies will have a batch of bad components. Zen Farrell's 4724 definitely signaling, looks like two tones. Yeah, some kind of FSK. By the way, I see lots of things like this. There's one on 4690.5 and another on 4623. So it's kind of interesting. Interesting to see all the mysteries of best indoor shortwave antenna, Paul, would be an MLA30 in my opinion. It'll be able to eliminate some of the noise you have indoors and next to a window. I see a lot of people using it next to a window. David's in Barcelona. Current issue, the 808 has orange display backlight. Also, the display itself is dimmer when looked at directly. For us, for some reason, it's been optimized to be most visible when looking at an angle with the radio on its back stand. Really, I found out when I got one of them. Yeah, and somebody that posted a video comparing the Seuodon version and the new version with the orange display backlight. Even the audio seems to be different. So maybe they did a few changes in there. For sure. Joseph Richards, I hope your day is going well. Bought an Ethon 750. I love this thing. What are your thoughts about it? I don't have much thoughts about it because I've never really played much with it, so I don't really have an opinion other than what I've can read on the internet for the most part. Dimitri, I like people joining the ham radio service. They do have quiet low noise levels with passband filters on the radios. They can hear faraway stations with no problem. Pirate on 6925 sounds pretty bad. Maybe it's just me. 6925, Patrick Moore. Let's check it out. 6925. Not hearing much right now. Jim from Rhode Island, nice to have you on board. So, as we are now down in the bottom of the chat, I will answer some of the questions of our friend Antonio, that is in southern Italy, and our friend has a few questions. So, okay, first question is, he is a guy that travels a lot because of his work. So he actually is traveling across Europe every year, and he always brings with him a shortwave radio. The first question he's got is, what should I be looking for when I get to other countries in the European zone? Are there things that I cannot hear in southern Italy that I would hear being in another European country? So, that question, yes, definitely, especially in the lower frequencies. Now, for the most part, even though Europe is pretty big, so there are definitely, first of all, going to be some differences in propagation of signals from some stations, whether you're on in Italy or in the UK or on the coast, like in Spain or further west. If you go if you're in Greece, if you're there's going to be even if you go to Turkey, there's definitely a difference because stations will, and that's why in the schedules often see the schedules of stations that broadcasting to Western Europe or Eastern Europe, because it's a big enough continent that you definitely will want to have specific broadcasts to the eastern part, the western part, and so on, or Central Europe. Now, that's for propagation capabilities. That means maybe broadcast from the BBC or Radio Romania or whatever is not easy to hear in Italy, but you might actually hear it really well in France or in the UK. There are some differences there. The other thing is local local stuff. I actually use online SDRs for that a lot. So if you stay on, say, bottom part of shortwave, if you go below, 5 megahertz, there are things you're going to hear in different countries that you might not hear in Italy. Say, for example, you're in the UK, you might hear some 3 or 4 megahertz weather stations that are located in Scandinavian countries like, Norway or Sweden, Finland, or even some from the Greenland area or Iceland. They all have these weather broadcasts, at different times on very low frequencies. Because they're very low frequencies, they might not propagate very well up to Italy, but if you're closer, because you're in the UK, for example, you might actually find that you can hear them there. So there's these little differences that you can check out. I use online Kiwi SDRs a lot for that purpose. When I see that, for example, there are frequencies with Sweden that's having marine broadcasts for utility stations, well, I'll get an SDR close, either in Sweden or close around the area, to see if I can hear them and see if they're broadcasting. Because one of the first things I want to see is, are they broadcasting actually? And the other thing is about the the so the tuning around of the different international broadcast signals that you could hear, that will have different strengths depending on where in Europe you are, basically. So definitely there's a difference, and definitely you'll hear stuff in parts of Europe you won't hear in other parts. And another example, if you have more difficulty hearing North American stations, for example, WRMI in Italy, well, you might have more chance if you're in Spain or the UK, or going to be closer to the ocean. Maybe the signal is going to be actually stronger. All sorts of things like that are going to be, and the reverse is true. There are things you're going to hear in the southern Europe, in southern Italy, sorry, that you might not hear in other regions of Europe. So it's worth tuning everywhere, tuning around, and having all the schedules and all the information of what is interesting to you. Because as you're moving in, you're going to see that there are things you hear in certain parts that are not audible elsewhere. Another example is I use a Kiwi SDR that is in either like one of the Scandinavian countries, but often I will try an SDR in Iceland to hear the Greenland weather stations that are active. I heard one last week. I saw the schedules; they were broadcasting on multiple frequencies, and I tried all the frequencies. Heard only one was active, but definitely there was some broadcast in, I don't know what language they were actually broadcasting, but it was not English for sure. Um, so they, I don't know, it was Danish or something, but they were broadcasting and they were definitely heard. But I heard them on the Iceland SDR. Even going to, say, one of the European SDRs, like even the Scandinavian countries like Norway, Sweden, Finland, whatever. There I could not hear it at all. But in this Iceland SDR, I was hearing it. So because it was closer to Greenland, of course. So that means there are broadcasts from these countries and the marine broadcasts, but they're in very low frequencies. In Europe, a lot of the marine broadcasts are in like just above the medium wave band, 1600 all the way to 1800 kilohertz can have tons of marine broadcasts. That area is full of broadcasts in Europe, and there's a lot of them in the 2 to 3 megahertz range also. So different countries, different things to listen to. Definitely, that's for sure. Once again, he's of course traveling a lot, and he says, "What would be the best travel antenna that you would actually tell me to get as I'm going from country to country? Has to be small and has to be easy to deploy. Is there something I can buy? What can I do? What would you do if you'd be in the same situation?" Well, you got a couple of options here. The best, I think, is just bring some copper wire. Just bring 100 feet of wire with you. It's small, compact, and you'll be able to set up easily anywhere. And often that's enough. Another thing you could try if you want is to get something like an MLA 30, and an MLA 30, once it's packed, is quite small and is easy to bring along everywhere. And you can set it up and just hook it up to something anywhere. It's actually would be nice for another reason is if you go somewhere you want to DX and it's noisy, well, the MLA 30 might help you in that noise, for sure. So hope that answers the question. In a different type of question, he's got a XH Data D808, and he was wondering, would it be an advantage for me to move from that radio to a Texan PL990 or H501? As I've seen a lot of your videos, you seem to be very happy with them. Let's just say that for travel, the advantage you have with the D808 is that it's small, so it's kind of travel, an easy travel radio, basically. The 990X is much bigger, heavier. H501 is huge for travel. So for travel purposes, I think you already have a great radio. Let me just say that you will not hear things on a 990 or H501 that you would hear. You won't hear on the D808. They're all pretty much good radios on shortwave, and for travel purpose, I think you have the right radio already. The only advantages that you would have on the 990, say for example, is its tuning. The tuning without having to play around with a little fine tuning thing makes it easier to listen to single sideband signals, for example. But you already have a great radio, I think, for travel. The other question is, I see a difference in what I hear in the summertime and the wintertime, and I'm always baffled as how come the difference is so big in the signals. Um, I know that there's a day and night difference in frequencies, high frequencies, low frequencies, but I don't understand why there should be such a difference between winter and summer. Can you explain a little more on propagation between the two seasons? It all has to do with the sun's angle, first of all, on the ionosphere, and with the length of day. The fact that in the summer months, you have a longer days. You also have the North Pole is in daylight 24 hours. You have a shape, because the best way to visualize it is to look at a map of day and night across the earth, and look at that map in the winter and the summer. You're going to see that the shape of the curves of where it's dark and where it's light is very different. And so there's to certain areas where you're listening to a signal, there are more daylight path in, say, the summer than in the winter. Well, that will change the propagation. If they don't change the frequency, you might actually be hearing them in the winter and not in the summer, or the other way around. There's a big change, and it all has to do still with the day-night stuff. It's just that the amount of day and night is different, and it's placed differently on the planet when you're in the summer and the winter. So that's definitely something that's going to play with that and change propagation depending on what signal from where you're listening. So that example here that I have is always, January, I'm not expecting Radio New Zealand, but in June or July, I will expect to hear Radio New Zealand on one of their frequencies. Why? Simply because of the pattern. There's more daylight path from New Zealand to here. The frequency they use is actually good for that, and it propagates up to here. And the wintertime, when they switch to that high frequency, well, there's too much darkness bad across the area, so it's just not making it. So there's all sorts of things like that. And the other thing that you have to remember is the angle of the sun on the ionosphere. As we move into winter, and that is an effect that is much more on the poles. And the closer you are to the north or south pole, the more the effect is there. It's that if when you get into winter, the sun goes down in the sky, the angle of solar radiation means the ionosphere might not have as much ionization. So it changes also what frequencies it'll be able to propagate and all, and even the directions of where the signals come from. So one season might favor more east-west signals, one season south-north signals. Remember that midday in midsummer, absorption is high. You might have a little area where there's very quiet and you're not going to be doing a lot of DX there. And in the wintertime, that might actually be less of a problem because of that solar radiation. So there's all sorts of things, and it's a very complex situation. What happens on propagation, and I mean, there's so much happening, and there's so many little things here and there. Just going back to the chat room, Zen Pharaohs is hearing 4623.5 upper sideband. He was Air Force, so cool. David, yep, seems that they made the COM lag version and then went back and repackaged in gray as new D808. Vince, what's the difference between the Texan S2000 and the Elite 750? The Ethon is twice the price. They are basically a lot of the main radio. From what I know, one has an IF out in the back, the other doesn't. But they're technically pretty much the same radio. The 750 is made by Texan. It's a variation of it, or S2000. So you get the one that costs less. You'll still have the same radio pretty much. Michael Hayward, nice to have you here from Maryland. Take care, Dwayne. Stay safe. Rifleman 336, nice to have you here, Alex, and 8UCN from Southwest Ohio. Patrick Moore, thank you for doing these. Thank you very much. Jim Gordon, I just bought a new D808 with a yellow display. It does sound marginally better, but still has that strange buzzing noise when keying in frequencies. What buzzing noise? You mean beeps or buzzing? What? Because I don't know exactly what you mean. Because when you key in frequencies, you're just, you have that little moment of the radio has to set itself for the listening of that signal. Current IT guy says SDRs in Iceland are interesting because after Dogboat, Europe and North America propagate there on the AM band. Yep, MLA30 does well with a power bank, absolutely. Greg heard Medium Wave, heard the BBC in 2019. Francis Moore, nice to have you here. Arctic Circle, nice to have you on board. Man Max says uses such little power. I haven't hooked it up to my 8,000 milliamp power bank, and it uses around 10% every 6 hours. It uses so little power that I have one of my power banks here that kind of shuts off by itself when nothing's plugged on it. And you have to press the little button to kind of activate it and bring it to life. When I plug an MLA30 on it, it takes so little power that it just shuts down. It thinks there's nothing plugged in. So it's kind of funny. Kind of funny. What else do we have? Where's a good list of current shortwave stations worldwide? EIBI space that has all the shortwave broadcasts. EIBI space.d by hour or by frequency, and you'll have everything. Take care, Bobby Burgess. The Dutchman 996, nice to have you here. Mad Radio DXer is back. If we look at another question from our friend here, Antonio in South Italy. So Antonio says that he's been listening to shortwave for the past 10 years and that he didn't even know it existed, even though he was born in 1957. He says he learned about shortwave 10 years ago because a friend of his had a radio and introduced him to listening to the world. His question is, have I missed a lot of broadcasts and a lot of countries on the bands because I didn't listen earlier? I know you've been listening since the early 80s, and you seem to mention a lot about the activity back then. Yeah, you missed a lot. And maybe it's a good thing that you missed a lot for a simple reason. I think there probably are some people in the hobby that um, are unhappy today after if they come back to shortwave. And the reason why there might be just like, saying, look, there's nothing on shortwave compared to when I was listening back in, 1975. And definitely anybody that hasn't listened to shortwave in 30 years, he is going to be in a state of shock listening today. That said, there's still a lot of stuff, and especially in Europe, you have even more stronger signals than we do in North America on many of the stations. So there's still a lot of stuff. Back then, when I started in '82, so many countries were on shortwave. It seems everybody had a shortwave outlet in some way. But it was already in 1982 when I was starting. Shortwave was already in decline. When people tell me all the time, it's like, well, the internet's killed shortwave. Shortwave was already killing itself in the 80s. Stations were slowly getting off. I remember stations that when the transmitter would go off, they would never come back. Some stations that were leaving in the 80s and the 90s, and the internet wasn't there. It was already a decline that was there. It was probably accelerated after after the Cold War ended, because now nobody really had anything to say that was unique. Everybody was kind of standing on the same, pretty much on the same boat now. And it seems that a lot of people thought, well, the Cold War over, I mean, shortwave is useless, which is a very, very sad way of thinking. One of the great examples that we could have right now of how shortwave is important, with the volcano eruption and Tonga that got hit real hard with all of the with the tsunami and everything. They don't have internet access now. There's an undersea cable that was severed. The only way to get information is through radio. And think of Radio Australia, how Radio Australia would have been extremely useful right now, but it's not there anymore. Now, thank God we have Radio New Zealand that's been doing extensive coverage of that, and that is making it to Tonga. So if they have shortwave radios, Radio New Zealand has been giving a lot of reports, detailed reports, and information. But we just saw an example of how shortwave is extremely important. We just saw it with that example. And we see that countries leaving shortwave is not necessarily a good idea. And I think a lot of people are not thinking of the possibilities and maybe even the future. So, Um, Man Ready the Xer says, "Shall I had the same problem with the MLA30 when it's plugged to my power bank? I got a power bank, keep alive USB stick, and it did the trick." Yeah, what I would do is I would bring along like the ATS-25 or the or my Malahide Chinese clone, and I'd just plug the Chinese clone on it, so that draws a lot of current, and it would keep it alive, and I'd have an extra radio to play with. Keegan, nice to have you here, X1080Xer from Northwest Arkansas, and on his way home. And Timothy Gunter, nice to have you here. Chuck Yunkin, nice to have you on board. Arctic Circle, is Ethon the best mobile radio in the world? New model 2022. First of all, like I said earlier, I bet you it's never going to be marketed. But I also bet earlier that if it is, I will buy one. Is that going to be the best radio around? We have to get one and test it out before we can say anything about it. Who knows? Who knows? I just hope it's not just let's take what we had, because that radio is a radio that existed in the past. I just hope they're not just going to like try to bring it back in full force and say, look at our new radio, when it's exactly the same thing. Man Max, I just ended up buying a Maker Hawk AT34 USB power meter and plugged it in line with the MLA30 on my power bank, which allowed it to use enough power to keep the power bank from turning off. David Haburn, I've been listening to Shortwave for 30 years. Radio back then, bands were much more active. KC8, MVI. Yep, there's a lot of stations. But, there's still a lot today. When we gotta for me, radio still has a lot of stuff to listen to on shortwave. Joseph Richard, the MLA30 Plus antenna was the best advice I got from you, and it's my best receiver antenna. I have it on a 10 feet PVC pipe. Cool. Pirate 6920. Let's check it out. 6920. Oops. Let me just go down by tuning here. Anything here? Not getting anything here. Mike Jam, is there any benefit to keeping the 2020? You mean the World Radio TV Handbook? If that's what you mean, should I just get a new one? The World Radio TV Handbook information, over time, definitely over time, it does. Hey, EAM message right now. 724. Let's go here. So there's some EAM messages from the U.S. Air Force for 724. Pretty good signal too here. So, like I was saying, the World Radio TV Handbook is a book where the information that is in it does not deteriorate as fast as, say, radio schedules. So a lot of the info that is in the 2020 handbook is still quite valid, but over time it does indeed have a timestamp where a lot of the info won't be good anymore. It depends what you're, the question you're asking is, it depends. Do you use it? Ask yourself that question. Do you use it for anything? Or do you use the World Radio TV Handbook for, checking out information about stations and stuff? If you answer that it's a go-to book for you to get the information, then the answer is do get the 2022, especially since possibly it's the last one. So that is something to think about. It depends on how much you use it. I have no plans on buying the 2022 personally. I've got the 2021 here. I don't see any reason to buy the 2022 personally. It is not a reference book I go to much, and for what I do mostly, pretty much all of what I need is on the internet. So it really depends on how you use the book. There might be a reason for you to buy a new one, but like I said, email address and postal address of stations from the 2020 book, probably 90% of all of that is still valid. It's still okay. You know. So Greg says heard the BBC on a medium wave band a long time ago. Zen Pharaohs says other frequencies with two-tone digital signaling: 4083, 4117, 4150.5, 4252, 4279, RTTY like, 4319, and many more. Alexander Biz, is the Sony ICF 77 the best portable handset in your opinion? I mean, all the Sony radios in general have always been quite good. Best, I don't know. Like I often say, is if you've got one, or if you've got an older Sony, or if you got an old Panasonic, my reasoning is always, you've got an older radio, it works fine, and it does what you want. There's no need to buy a new one. There's really no need to buy a new one. You're not going to get on a newer radio stations you're not getting on an older radio if it works fine. But if you are in the impression that I'm going to buy a Sony receiver from the past because they are the best in the world, you're better off buying a brand new radio today, like a Texan receiver. If you're going to put the money in the Sony, the price that they're sold, put the money in a Texan 990 or H501. You get a better radio, better frequency, display, precision, and you're getting a great radio, and you're going to be better off with brand new technology than older technology. But if you have an older radio that does a job, there's no need, if you're happy with it, there's no need to buy a new one. There's no need to buy a new one, honestly. Simon Templar, happy Saturday. Hope you are well, my friend. Thomas Kitts, nice to have you on board. 15 below zero here in up north Michigan. 20 minutes from Lake Superior. Yep, we had minus 22 Fahrenheit last night. We're at almost zero now, minus 17.6 here. So we're pretty much close to zero. Oh, there's an interesting signal. If you have an SDR, guys, look at 4610. There's these dots. Let me tune it. 4610. So there's like a white noise. There's sometimes some kind of swirling pattern in it, and sometimes it's just dots. The kind of bursts of data. Some kind of bursts of data. It's kind of interesting to see. Oh, look at that. Some really, really... Wow, that sounds funky. I've heard that before. Wow, this is so weird of a signal, and the sound that it has. I just put it in AM mode, and it sounds weird. So it's actually a very wide band signal, 4600 to 4620 in 20 kilohertz. Very interesting. What else do we have? Jen Farrow says, "Oh man, that EM on 4724 is getting slower and slower. The pitch shift is bizarre. The frequency isn't quite stable either." No problem, Mike Jam. Moving weekend, Bobby Burgess. Hope you'll still be able to listen to the radio where you go. Robert Osborne says, "Panasonic isn't always appreciated for their radios, but I've always liked them." Yeah, they made some really nice stuff over time. I've owned a few. I regret not keeping them. I really, really regret not keeping them, honestly. What do we have? Mad Radio DX, nothing on the U20 SDR. Does it sound like Olivia Moon? It's a very weird signal. And it's kind of like it's gone now. But it's very, very funky. Yeah, Simon Templar, the buzzer has been having a hard week. Some been sending some pictures through Waterfall with like troll faces and stuff. There's been some slow scan TV, all sorts of things happening, music, talk. Some of it is apparently suspected to come from Ukraine. Jim Gordon, D808s are audible buzzing as you key in. Okay, well, it's probably noise because it's circuit noise. It doesn't really matter because when you're keying in, the frequency doesn't matter. It's probably some circuit noise. As you're keying it in and holding it with your hands, there's some internal noise probably getting into the reception. It doesn't really matter as long as it receives well. A lot of the radios have that. A lot of DSP receivers have some noise when you handle them in certain ways. You can detect that there's some internal noise. Yeah, in it. Thomas Kitts sounds my fur baby friend. Pretty good, pretty good. They are really, really actually both cats are going very well. Once again, another EAM message for 724. Zen Pharaohs, that thing on 4600 probably related to 4603, two-tone signaling, which is has replaced the two digital, might be a channel placeholder for this signaling. Arctic Circle, my test the best is radio is NRD 515. Oh, they're great radios. That's definitely they're great radios. Zara and Faros confirmed the 4610. It includes one of those tone frequencies, two tone frequencies mentioned. It is probably U.S. Air Force since 4724 is associated with it. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Thomas, the lamp, sweet, the pink purple. My wife likes it. It's a smart lamp. It's one of those smart lamps. I can control it on my phone. I can put it just white if I want and have it as a standard lamp. I thought it'd be fun to have it change colors today. It makes something else to look at my face. And this is a brand new map of the world that I purchased. I wanted to have, it's always fun to have a map of the world when you are doing radio because you can have a quick look at, where such and such is situated. So it's a very nice map. I'm going to try to put my lighted world globe also here. So slowly gonna do stuff. So here's gonna be something I'm gonna try to. My biggest idea is the have probably the SDR projected here, so you guys will have once again something else than my face to see as we're slowly kind of rearranging the background. I want to have a nice background that you guys are going to enjoy and that's going to make it kind of cool to see whatever is there. But I think that would be nice to maybe have a the projection of an SDR here. So I'll be checking that out, and I'll be having the radios there. So I'll probably in the next couple of weeks when things are set up properly be alternating between here and the other side with the SDR screen and stuff like that. Here, 4600 to 4620 is back with all of the digital stuff. That's interesting. So they would be linked for 724, and that would be linked together. That's kind of an interesting signal. Huh. San Pharaohs, while we are doing weird signals, is that neighborhood, do you have the slurping 4358.5 USB? It is overlaid with Kodar. 43, I'm just going to go down here. Boof, boof. So 43. So what frequency you're talking about? 4358.5. I've got nothing there. I've got nothing there, and I don't have Kodar either there. I got Kodar higher up on the frequency range, but not there. There's a lot of Kodar that I see from different strength up to the signal on 4600, but nothing on 4358 here. Man Reader the Xer, have you adopted the cat, or is it more a guest? We can say it's pretty much adopted since she's been, in the past week, she's been here all day, not going outside much, and sleeping here, and I'm feeding her. So, and she's getting more and more, she's kind of getting really nice now and relaxed with the environment. So not scared as before. So technically, she's kind of adopt. I mean, I will let her in and have her in as much as she wants. And if she decides, because one thing that I know is when it's back beautiful outside and she can go out, she prefers to spend a lot of hours out there. She prefers to spend the day outside, and even in the fall, there were cold nights. She would come in and sleep here in the cold nights, but some of the fall days where it was warmer, she actually would sleep outside all night. So it's like she prefers to be outside when the weather's good, but now she's kind of adopted and knows that she can come here if it's raining or if it's cold or whatever. And so right now she's been here for, I don't think she's been, I'd say in the past 2 to 3 weeks, she's been here almost constantly. And she sleeps here, and so she's kind of adopted, but at the same time she's kind of a kind of cat that, I know when it gets back to the snow melting and warmer outside, she's going to prefer going and having her little strolls in the back and going, being gone for a few hours. But she has a home. She has a home if she wants to come here. That's for sure. But the problem is it'd be kind of difficult to bring her to a vet because she doesn't want to get, I can't take her, and I know if I try to put her in a cage for the vet, she's gonna she's gonna go crazy. So I can't really do that. Paul. I just put him in the cage, and he's like, "Oh, that's fun. We're going somewhere." Paul is more in that mode. He's like, "Oh, cool, we're going somewhere." But she's gonna go nuts if I put her in a cage. So I can't really bring her to the vet or anything. So I'm gonna take care of her as long as she comes here and she wants to stay here. And it's kind of my cat. Man Max says, was listening to the UVB 76 with KSDR. I was on the Belarus SDR and didn't hear much of anything. The only places I heard them one was around the Netherlands. Thomas, wow, smart lamp, love it, and love the map too. What else do we have? Keegan using an external antenna, 2-meter ham whip, a PL259 connected to a 75 home adapter, homemade, to his 3.5 millimeter adapter. 3830 Radio Man, nice to have you here. Yeah, well, I got it's not a lamp per se, but I have a world globe here that is illuminated. Pyron on 6933. 6933. Not much in the way of pirates here. I'm hearing one on 6925 though. $69.25 lower sideband. $69.25 lower sideband. I'm hearing a pirate. So Keegan is having audio from the Ethan Grenick Satellite Edition to the auxiliary input of car radio. Cool. Me today, I was downloaded the shortwave numbers stations on my iTunes, and it's much cheaper to buy the others which on CD available in today. Chris 66, nice to have you here from Kentucky. Yeah, she has one Mad Radio DX or mignon, which means that she's cute, basically in French. Mignon is her name. Keegan was unable to listen and read the chat at the same time on my iPhone due to changes with YouTube. Also, my iPhone battery is low. Take care, 73, my friend. Actually, 76. Stray cats are the best. I've had 2, and both were great. She's really a very nice cat. I can tell you that. She's a nice kitty, and she's, she has her little brush against Paul the cat. They don't, Actually, she likes Paul because she gets in, and she's gonna actually go see Paul and headbang Paul like, "Hi, I'm here. I'm happy to see you." But Paul doesn't like her. He wants to smack her. So if she gets near Paul, Paul smacks her, and then I hear her do meow, like saying, "Hey, Paul is hurting me." And sometimes they do have a brush against each other. So it's like, sometimes I'm wondering if it's not just more of a play thing with her, particularly. Sometimes when she kind of, gets Paul, I was thinking that maybe the impression of more of she wants to play, but Paul doesn't want to play. Francis Moore, been learning Morse for now 2 months, and it's going good. However, I am dyslexic, and I was going to apply for the Foundation License UK, but worried about getting confused when taking it. Don't take your time, and don't worry too much about it. The problem with anything, being dyslexic or um, any type of a little disorder like that we all have, that we might have. One of the biggest problems is, these are the kind of things that get worse when we start worrying about it. So the more you worry about it, the more you're gonna mess up. So that the best thing to do is don't worry about it, and don't worry about it because it's, you try the exam, you go through it. If you pass, you pass. If for some reason you didn't pass, you'll pass it again. That's all. If it's like here, you can pass it as many times as you want. So study and just don't worry about it. And I'm sure you're going to get it. I'm sure you're going to get it. There's so much, there's the, there's these little things that sometimes we worry too much about, and we worry too much about the fact that we have this or that, and that we might mess up or something. It we got to stop worrying. It doesn't matter, and you'll be fine. Got an email from Annery Gonzalez. Hello from Missouri City, Sugarland, Texas. Hello from Missouri City, Sugarland, Texas. Great show, Dr. Annery Gonzalez. Well, welcome aboard, my friend. Thank you for saying hello through the email. Oh, that's nice to see here. So a few things we're going to talk about that I want to mention once again is the added show for a amateur radio live show that's going to happen once a month. For now, it's once a month. So Sunday, January 30th. So it's always the last Sunday of the month. Just remember, last Sunday of the month, you got to be there. It's going to happen on the official VHF UHF channel that I have rebranded as Victor Echo 2 Zulu Zulu India's amateur radio channel. Of course, all of you that were there before know that it was dedicated to VHF UHF stuff and scanner radio. That is now over. It will be dedicated for amateur radio. At all. That's all. So official VHF UHF channel, and here we go. So I put the link in the chat room. So there's going to be some amateur radio content there, since I have my my license now as Victor Echo 2 Zulu Zulu India. I will be from there doing, of course, the live show every last Sunday of the month. We're going to talk about amateur radio. It's for anyone. It's not just for ham radio operators, by the way. It's for anyone. If you are an amateur radio operator, I think it's a good thing that you join. If you're not an amateur operator but are curious about amateur radio, or maybe thinking of becoming a ham radio, we're going to have the live show. For the first one is going to be 20 hours Universal Time, Sunday, January the 30th. So that's next week. And hope that you guys enjoy that. So this is going to be really, really nice. So that's going to be for the amateur radio channel, and I plan to post a lot of videos about amateur radio at that point. ManMax, on the back of the ATS-25, what's the different status for charge a light LED, or does it just shine solid green when charged? Um, I believe there's a. I would have to plug mine again to see, but I believe it's red when charging and blue or whatever other color when it's fully charged. But that is, um, I'm not sure. I'm trying to remember if it's a solid color or it changes color. I know the ATS 20 had two colors, red and green or red and blue or something. But I think that one has red and blue, but I'm not sure. I'm going to have to look at it. Yeah, the MLA30. If you have a lot of noise, MLA30 is probably a good choice. Arctic Circle had a Norwegian forest cat, loved it. Is there a, you mean medium wave AM radio medium wave? There's no real schedule for medium wave or anything. What you'll have to do is simply, tune around and know what stations are. There are stations lists. There are probably some listing of medium wave stations and locations from around Canada or the United States, but there's no medium wave schedule per se. What I do on AM radio medium wave is simply punch in the frequency into Wikipedia is pretty good at this. You punch in the frequency on Wikipedia, 630 kilohertz AM, and it's going to pop up all the AM stations that are on that frequency from Canada, United States, and other countries, Mexico, and so on, with the power, daytime power, nighttime power, and so on. That's what I use. So I'm going to give you an example here. If I go on Wikipedia, say I'm, tuning around and I'm listening to 830 kilohertz AM. So I just say 830 kilohertz AM, and it shows up as 8:30 a.m. in the search on Wikipedia. So here I've got 8:30 a.m. So I've got the article here that shows up, 8:30 kilohertz a.m. Then you've got countries: Argentina, Mexico, and then there's the United States. So here I can actually open United States, and then you'll have the list of every station from every city and state in the United States. It'll have daytime, nighttime power, and everything. I gotta say, Wikipedia's list is amazingly useful for anybody that DXs stations from the medium wave band. So all you have to do is search for that frequency, and I gotta say, it's really, really nice. There's also what David has shared, which is the medium wave list. So this one has a quick access. Let me just check it out for 2 seconds. So you can click one of the frequencies, and it's going to give you some information on what's there. At the top, you have Asia Pacific, North America, Central America, Caribbean. So you click North America, for example, and the same example. So I would click North America. Then on that list, you'll see that there's the frequencies on the left side. What you do is I would click 830 that I clicked earlier, and then you'll have a complete list of the stations on that frequency. So that is another resource that's very, very nice. But Wikipedia is pretty good also. And so, two resources here that you have for checking out what's on. The biggest problem is identifying some of the stations. And what I do is I do a mix of looking at the stations, looking at the power level also. So, if a station is very far away and it says they're using only 1 kilowatt, chances are I'm not listening to that station probably. So looking at the power level, the distance relative to where you are of that station, and then going on their website and streaming it or using an app like TuneIn. And often a lot of them have the streaming of that station and trying to match what I hear on the stream and what I hear on the radio. Is it the same thing? That gets tricky at times, but that gets tricky at times because it the delay, sometimes the delay is like 20 or 30 seconds, and it makes it harder to kind of match what you're listening to. But definitely a lot of fun to play with. Radio Man, nice to have you here from snowy Grand Rapids. Late again, but arrived with a smile. Cool. Yeah, they we all saw the Ethon radio that should be available at some point, but for the time I'm still not still not convinced it's gonna be there. David McCormick, yep, that's what I was saying. Pirate on 6925 lower sideband. Good signal, fair to good signal here in Montreal on 6925 lower sideband. So that is definitely a nice little pirate station there to check out. Kisamaku, can I say I'm DXing if ETM found the frequencies? Easy tuning mode. DXing is not something that has to do with whatever technology you're using to find the stations. DXing has to do with, the most basic description of DXing is listening to a distant station. Okay. So a distant station is all you need to be DXing. So whether the radio's easy tuning mode found it, or you did it manually, it doesn't change what DX is all about. DXing is DXing. You're listening to faraway stations. Then add to that there's, depending on some radio geeks, DXing can have a definition. So the so-called DXers might tell you, you heard WRMI, that's not DXing. That's not DX. You know what? Who are you to give a definition of what DX is? Honestly, DX is DX. I mean, a station from far away is a station from far away. I get it, what they mean. They mean that for them, DX is that little low power station that nobody ever hears, and that you hear it one day from, Bolivia, and you're like, oh, that's DXing. Yeah, but you know what? If you've heard WRMI, it's still DXing, because DXing is listening to a faraway station. That's all. So it depends the definition you put on it, and depends who you are, because there's a wide variety of what DX is depending on who you are. So that's all it's going to be. That's all it's going to be. And the rest, whether it's done by ETM scan or not, it doesn't really matter. This is a Shure microphone. I don't remember the exact model. It's one of those. It's one of the most popular models around that's everywhere. It's like everybody uses that same exact model all the time. I don't remember the model number, but it's a Shure microphone. Does the Texan A501 have ETM capability? The Texan 501 has ATS, which scans and will store the different shortwave stations it came across. But it is not exactly like ETM, because easy tuning mode is a feature that is a temporary feature, meaning when you scan these stations, they're not in permanent memories technically. They're in memories, especially ETM Plus has memories depending on time of scan, but they're not in technically official memories. ATS puts them in the official memory bank of your radio, whatever bank you choose. And the the it will have the same effect. You'll it's going to scan through the bands and get you the stations you want to listen to. Yeah, sure. SM58. I think that's the thing. He says you can hammer nails with that thing, although not recommended. I know. That's what they're using, the karaoke bar I go to, and hundreds and hundreds of times it's been dropped on the floor from drunk people. It 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 is crazy. Man Reader DXer, if I receive a DAB station from London and I am only 50 miles away, does that count as DXing? I think it does, but if it is something else, then maybe I need to change what I think DXing is. Like I say, DXing is a very we all have a different definition of DXing. David, I consider DX to be either a station from a continent different from the one I'm in, or a low-powered station difficult enough to receive, even if it's the same continent, like Dutch pirates. So it's it's a definition we put ourselves through, honestly, DXing. Because once again, look at the definition of what DXing means. It's just station from far away. And so, WRMI is far away. It's thousands of miles from me. The definition that you put to DXing will depend on where you want to put that bar. My definition of DXing for me will be anything that is more difficult than average to get. So my take on it, for example, will be if I'm listening to WRMI, I'm not DXing because it's easy stuff. But that said, I could be DXing WRMI if it's low power and transmitting to another continent on a frequency where it's almost impossible to get for me here, and I get it one day. That could technically become DX because it's a difficult catch on that specific frequency, for example. And but my definition, where I put my threshold, is anything that is more difficult than average to listen to, wherever it is. If I hear, if I hear a weather station from Eastern Canada on a specific frequency that's so difficult that I never hear it, and someday I hear it, DXing. An example: I heard Bermuda Arbor Marine Station on 2582, I believe, 2 nights ago. Well, that's DXing. It's a rare one for me, and it's in Bermuda. It's on a low frequency. It helps to decide what's DXing or not. So um, it's really all of that, honestly. So the DXing, I think we all have a threshold where we put it. But using a technology that's getting a station is not does not mean you're not DXing. So an example of that, so we were talking about easy tuning mode. If the easy tuning mode gets on a very weak station that's in Africa, you're DXing. It doesn't matter that the ETM scan got it. You're listening to some difficult station that's coming in now. But it's really, really very personal, honestly, what DXing is. And, some really hard core DXers and stuff are going to, like, poo poo you if you say that you're DXing, say, HTJB on 6050. Well, I'm sorry, but it's low power and it's in Ecuador. If I classify it as a DX target now, and it's not every night. But you'll get these hardcore DX guys going to just come in and say, you know what, that's HCJB, and it's there all the time, and we hear it regularly, and blah blah blah, and you're not DXing, and you don't know what DX is. It's like, the kind of annoying people that you feel like saying, shut up. You're the guys that are killing the hobby because you're annoying everybody else in the hobby with silly rules that are supposed to be, that's the rule, and you gotta, yeah. Okay, go away. The kind of annoying people like that I just can't. Um, and there's a lot of them in the amateur hobby also. It's like, you shouldn't be doing that because of this. Ah, shut up. What else do we have? What else do we have? Zen Pharaoh says, Brother Stairs not far away enough. Yeah. but. Hey, take care, Art. Stay safe. And 73, K2ADC. Man Max, yeah, low wattage stations that only put out a few watts would probably be DXing if you're not in the same town. Probably for a few in the same town. So, Michael Howard, good emergency solar wind-up shortwave radios. I don't know. I got a few here, and they're all crappy. I've not yet seen one. David, yeah, just pretty summed up my idea in less words. More difficult than average. Its propagation conditions might also determine whether or not certain target is DX. Yep. Madrid DX, they're thinking about it. I consider DXing to be receiving a station outside of my city, even if it's in the low power FM in the city. Yeah, it is DXing. Absolutely. But it's personal view. But, receiving a pirate station on FM that's pumping up 10 watts and you're at the other side of town from it, you're DXing. VT Radio, take it from me. Vermont is rare DX. Most of the time, I can't even get it. Zen Pharaohs and other news. This is the time when 6070 CFRX is coming in loud and clear. So you use it as a propagation test. And talking about that, we're just going to talk about it a little bit because I get, I get a lot of people asking me, what they use to see propagation and trying to understand the solar indices and the best thing, and what I pretty much do all the time is I always use as a reference. Honestly, I always use as a reference specific stations that I will go and check out if I can hear them for the propagation conditions most of the time. That's pretty much what I do all the time. What else do we have? What else do we have? Let's go down. Going to see. And Bartrina. Propagation is still bad. It's not. It's actually pretty good today. And I see all the signals here and all this stuff. I think propagation is not your problem. Noise is your problem. Thank you, Cygnus Rider. See you. Stay safe. Sun Pharaohs, the SM58 is legendary for surviving tours with even the most inept roadies. Radio Man, little drunk people in karaoke bars never happened. Oh, man. Sun Pharaohs, DX is just one of many two-letter abbreviations hams use for CW. It is abbreviation for distance. Yep. Dimitri, question for you. Why some pirate radio stations use single sideband to transmit their music? It's really, I understand why you're asking the question, because I understand that music on single sideband isn't the best. And you have that's where you having a radio that you can fine tune really well is useful, because it's easier to get the right tone on the music. But it's mostly a question of, for the same amount of power used, your signal in single sideband will go further away than if they would do it on AM mode. So, and there's also that duty cycle. In single sideband, there's a lot of little places where the signal, there's nothing being sent. So your transmitter might run cooler on single sideband than running on a AM signal that has that carrier all the time. So the main reason is you'll get a signal across much further away on single sideband, and that's why they use single sideband even for their music. Yep, medium wave DXing, long wave DXing. There's DXing in every aspect, and the daytime DXing of medium wave is different from my nighttime DXing from medium wave. So you might be DXing a station that's 100 miles away on medium wave at noon. It's DX, because it's a tough one to get at 100 miles in midday on the AM band. So there's, it depends on where you are, what frequency range. So for sure. And Max says, like AM stations across the street that puts out thousands of watts definitely wouldn't be DXing. No, that wouldn't be a DXing. MDK2, Matt says, personally, I don't consider same continent shortwave to be DX, especially if the signal is intended for my receiver. But there are far more important things to worry about than if the others call it DX or not. Absolutely. Well, Nature Southwest, as a new ham, I learned a lot from your shows. Thanks. Well, welcome aboard. And it's always nice to have people here all the time. But it's I don't get your own basically get your own opinion and decide what you think is DX, and that's it. And tell the others to go to hell. So you heard me right out there. Anybody that says, well, you're wrong, go to hell. What else do we have? David says, Joe Rodman, I say I'm here from the Chicago area. David says, no variable in definition of DX is frequency. Yeah, there's a lot of variables depending on what your threshold of DXing is all about. It's as simple as that. Greg, I agree with what you say about DXing. Patrick Moore here in Costa Rica, and though there's no AM stations during the day, at night I can pick up a lot from Colombia. So, yep, must be a lot of them from the Central and South America region there. Vince, what is the difference with SSB and AM, USB, LSB on SDR Uno, and what is the use of SSB? Okay, so first of all, SSB is single sideband. SSB is what defines what lower and upper sideband is. Okay, single sideband is a mode of transmission. And it is, if you sum it up in a simple way, an AM signal has a carrier and has what we call sidebands on each side. Usually, most AM signals have the same kind of programming on the lower and upper side in with that carrier. What's going to happen is that that signal needs that carrier to be decoded. It's the best mode of transmission because of radios that don't have single sideband capability. Any radio up to a crystal receiver will hear that because it will be able to decipher the information with that station on the with the carrier. Remove the carrier, and we get now. If you keep the sidebands, you'll have double sideband, but let's not go there. Let's remove the carrier and remove one of the sidebands. That's what we become single sideband. It does not have a single carrier with it. It's just information from speech or music or whatever that is just being sent out. Single sideband has the upper side or the lower side. What does that mean? You're on 5,000 kilohertz. You can transmit upper, which means your signal is from 5,000 kilohertz and up from that frequency. So if you use 3 kilohertz bandwidth, that means your signal is from 5,000 to 5,003 kilohertz in size on the upper side of 5,000. If you would switch to lower sideband, the lower sideband, you would hear nothing. Why? Because you're listening on the other side. You're listening down from the frequency, but the information is up from that frequency. If you would transmit in lower sideband, then you would go down from that frequency. That's when you use lower sideband. So when people use lower or upper, the information is either going up from the frequency you're tuned to, or it's going down from the frequency you're used to. So up will be the upper sideband. If it goes down from the frequency, it's the lower sideband. So it's as simple as that. Is AM is what international broadcasters use, is what the medium wave stations use. Carrier with sidebands on each side. Single sideband, it's more efficient. That's why it exists, because you don't have that carrier to worry about. So if you send 200 watts about it, if you send 200 watts, you have more power with single sideband than with having to care about a carrier that uses a lot of that energy. So you have much more distance capability with single sideband. What else do we have? Patrick Moore, I'm hoping to do more some DX with long wave in Costa Rica, but the mountains block the signals from Europe. I'm holding out. Yeah, and Europe, when you look at a map, also at the same time, when you start looking at where Costa Rica is located, you start seeing that basically you're further away from Europe than you would be on the east coast of. So it's probably a much more difficult thing to do from there. But anything's possible, especially if you live close to the shore of the ocean. Arctic Circle, do you have a lot of snow? We have about, I'd say we have about, in centimeters, probably 45 to 50 centimeters on the ground. Joey D, I've noticed that Brother Stare broadcasts are now on the University of 20 SDR on that DRM, I believe. I don't know if there's a broadcast of Stare on DRM, but Toast and Loaf. Anybody used those Whistler type receivers, basically audio range 10 hertz to 15 kilohertz. Yeah, they're called natural radio. I've never had mine, never had one, but you hear a lot of what's happening and created by the Earth and the geomagnetic field itself and so on. Francis Moore, you're my information that helped me get into the radio world. Cool. Vince, sorry, I should have write DSB double sideband. Well, double sideband, just think about it as an AM signal that you remove the carrier. So it's rich in information because it has information on both sidebands. But unlike an AM signal, they just removed the carrier in the middle. It's simple as that. And so double sideband would kind of be richer in what the information will have because it still uses a bigger footprint, a bigger bandwidth. So it would technically sound richer in audio frequencies and so on. But it just that you need your receiver to create the carrier that is missing. Like a single sideband signal, it's just that the information is on both sides at the same time, upper and lower. And if the information is the same, you would be able to tune in a double sideband in only one sideband if you want, if the information is the same on each side. You could also have a double sideband transmission that has different information on upper and lower. So you could be broadcasting two programs on a double sideband if you want. You could be broadcasting something on the upper side of it and a completely different thing on the lower side of it, which means you would just have to switch between upper and lower sideband to hear what's on one side or the other. But double sideband itself, same information on both sides. There's just no carrier like an AM transmission does usually. Keegan, welcome back. Vicky Peltier, interesting knowledge it is displayed by explaining lower and upper sideband. N6RLS, why do we keep the legacy system of LSB on 40 meters and below and USB above 40? Digital is always USB, but phone mode still switches between lower and upper. Honestly, it's because, so the reason, for those that don't know, the reason why lower sideband and upper sideband is used like that, is separated in the ham bands, is due to the design of the good old days of radios and transceivers. And it was simply easier to design a radio with lower sideband on the lower frequencies and upper sideband on the upper frequencies due to design. And indeed, today, that is not a problem anymore because today's radios, are much more advanced technology that don't have a problem with dealing with that. I guess what they just decided. Well, let's keep it like that. Let's keep it like that. And nobody ever thought of we could change it. It's not illegal to do it differently. You're allowed to go on 40 meters, 7225, and say, hey, I'm going to be an upper sideband today. You're not infringing on any rules or any that your license, your license does not, have that requirement. It's really gentlemen's agreements, basically, that all of that works like that. You're right, because one of the funny things about digital modes is, and that's one of the things that I always thought is, if you want to keep the lower upper sideband thing going, why aren't you guys broadcasting digital modes and lower sideband on 40 meters rather than using upper sideband? That would be the logical thing to do. But it's just that, once again, another gentleman rule, basically, of a gentleman agreement of all digital modes are upper sideband. We'll accept it like that. And it makes it easier. And of course, in lower sideband, often the information is reversed. So you got to use the reverse mode on the software or the decoder and so on. It all depends. But it's we just continued using the same pattern and the same way of all of it. But indeed, we could tomorrow say, hey, you know what? How about we all do everything in upper sideband in any frequency range? And for sure. Man, Max, the last thing I want to hear is the stare virus is spreading. We already have enough infected stations. Yep, indeed. Alexander, are you familiar with the radio app known as Radio Garden? Yep. Probably have it on my phone. I don't use it much because I'm not much of a streamer of stations. What did I just 599 Mali? Probably that's the station there usually. And let me just check it out here. Just gonna lower the bandwidth. I'm having a buzz, and I know that comes from the computer here. Yeah, I'm hearing music on 5995. And there's 5990, which I believe is China radio via Cuba. But yep, 5995 is Mali. Jack Amalar, remember the VOA feeder transmissions with separate programming on lower and upper sideband? Oh man, I had forgot about those. Yeah, I remember tuning them in and having them and listening to those things. And that's true. You would actually tune lower or upper sidebands. And that's where you needed a radio, because that's the problem with radios that say SSB, single sideband. A problem with a portable receiver that is only rated or noted as SSB and doesn't have separate upper lower is that the precision of the radio isn't good enough to separate the upper and the lower part. So you get a mishmash of something. That's why having a radio that has a separate upper lower sideband becomes interesting, because now you can really clearly listen to one side only of it. Man, I had forgot about those feeder transmissions. There are a lot of them. Wow. Man, it's pretty much like SSB on CB bands, where only a few channels are for SSB to keep the bands less cluttered. Yeah. What else do we have? Jose Humberto Almonte. Just to have you here. So, what else do we have? E3 IEK, David in Barcelona says Ital cable time signal that can be received on my QTH uses USB plus carrier modulation scheme, with the carrier being so that compatibility with AM only portables radios is maintained. Yeah, we have the same here with CHU. CHU is a reduced carrier upper sideband thing, and that means that you can hear it on upper sideband wall, but you can still hear it on a regular analog radio. Then Farrows was using upper sideband. Yep, that's a good trick to use. Upper sideband, lower sideband, to move away from stations that could be one is named Paul and the other one is named Mignon. Nice to have you here, Susie. Dimitri, what is you recommended to must have on HF transceivers? Best mode, notch filters, internal tuner, and so on. I think an internal tuner, well, most of them do have that now. But of course, internal tuners, um, the best filters possible is important. Modes, they're all modes pretty much, most of the transceivers today. But it's really, has much more to do with how you can, um, you know, reduce noise interference, and having those noise reduction features are nice to try to clear up the station and have it easier to listen to on the transceivers. So guys, I've been on for 3 hours 24, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. I will now go and cook myself some food. I'm not sure yet, but maybe they're going to be beef fajitas, or maybe shepherd's pie. I think it's going to be shepherd's pie. I think that's going to be what I'm going to do tonight. So, hope you enjoyed the show. It was nice to have all of you here today, as usual. It's always cool to be here. It's always fun to be here. What I will be doing is going to go and cook my little food. And when I am done, I'm going to do radio again. And I'm going to be posting whatever I'm going to be listening to. And hopefully you'll see some of my posts and what I'm actually tuning tonight on the Facebook group, official SWL channel. Mickey Dalmage on the 70s Radio Netherlands used to record their program 3 weeks in advance and mail them to the relay station. For the New Year's to be current, they would use SSB feeders just before. Oh, cool. I didn't know that. Really nice. So thanks, guys. Stay safe. Have some good DX, depending on your own personal criteria. And hope that you enjoyed the show today. We'll be back. Remember, next week, 3 shows. Next week. One show is on Wednesday, North American time at 8 p.m. Eastern, which is Thursday for the rest of the world at 0 hours UTC. 7 p.m. Eastern. Sorry, I said 8. 7 p.m. Eastern. And on next Saturday, we have 20 hours UTC, 3 p.m. Eastern. And Sunday, January 30th, on the other channel, the one about Amateur Radio, we're going to have the first live show for amateur radio. And so hope that you're going to enjoy that. Extra show next week. Stay safe, and always fun to be here, of course, as usual. And take care, everybody. So love you all, okay? Stay safe.